All right. This is my first seminar. I've never given a seminar before, so we'll just work our way into this. And where to actually begin? Someone has mentioned history. Certainly there's a lot of history to our parampara. Probably if we talk for a long time, in the next 3 or 4 days, if it comes up to 20 some hours worth of talk. And while talking, I see certain things in your eyes, responsive faces, so many different things. Then many things might come out which are of value and interest to you. Actually, we can't really give a seminar on anything of substance in Krishna consciousness, because it's always under lock and key, and the keeper of the key is above us. And according to his wish, a dumb man like myself could also possibly elegantly speak the Vedas. Or a blind person could see the beauty of the Himalayas, or a lame man could cross the mountains. But actually it is in his hand. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, the Param Guru, or the Param Guru of most everyone here, sent the first devotees to the West for preaching, he told them, go forth with this message of Sriman Mahāprabhu and listen very closely to what you say. And what he was inferring to is not that you will listen closely and make sure you're not saying anything unbona fide or anything out of what I've taught you. The experience in his time with his devotees was a very profound experience of Krishna consciousness. And this word subjective in English, this word subjective reality, subjective experience, and subjective plane, this was quite the common expression, what they were after, what they were trying to get in touch with. And that was reality descending, coming down to the proper recipient. So their conception of preaching was that in the authorized speaker in front of a bona fide audience, then things that neither one has ever heard before may descend through the speaker. This is not the type of thing that we were raised to understand in the same way. But as we go on and discuss, you'll see that, oh, this is something we've been a part of since the very beginning. In another very simple way, Srila Prabhupada said, I did not write these books, Krishna did. Oh, that's very nice, but what does it mean? Krishna wrote these books. His hand, his tongue was moving, clicking, 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 clicking on the dictaphone. Oh, what does it mean Krishna wrote these books? In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ramananda Roy tells Mahaprabhu that what I'm saying, it is simply passing through me. I don't even know if it's correct or not. Just as everything was revealed in the heart of Brahma at the beginning of creation, so you, Ramananda Roy tells Mahaprabhu, so you are also causing me to speak. And it is passing through me, it is wonderful, but I'm not sure if it's even right. Only you, the listener, you will be able to say if it is right or not, right or wrong. So this is the subjective experience. It is coming down through us. It is coming to us through the agency of our guru. Generally, though, in the beginning, we don't have any qualification to draw down anything. You see, we're like a dead battery. We cannot draw the radio message. So with some force, the agent of Krishna turns up the volume and he blasts out the message, almost to the point that even the deaf can hear it. They can respond. But what has to happen is the hearer has to become alive in that plane and eager for that message. The message is infinite. Want to wait for others to be seated? Is that when the first devotees were sent to the Western world for preaching, that was in 1933. So heading that group of devotees, I believe there were 3 of them. The head of that group was Bhakti Hridoy Ban Maharaj, who was one of the second or third sannyasi disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He had 18 sannyasi disciples. Only 18. Our Srila Prabhupada had 57. Some of Prabhupada's godbrothers had over 100. Srila Puri Maharaj had 127 sannyasi disciples. When Sarasvatī Ṭhākura began, he had 18 sannyasi disciples. So Ban Maharaj was amongst them, and he headed the first group of devotees to go to the West. They went to England initially. They went to Germany. This is pre-World War II in 1933. Many of the great personalities in World War II were also there at the time. Ban Maharaj met Goebbels and Rommel and distributed a book called Sri Chaitanya. I have a copy of that book. It's been out of print for a long time. It's about 800 pages. It's in par excellent English. It was translated by, actually it was written by Nishikant Sanyal, Prabhupada's godbrother, disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and an elaborate introduction by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta himself. And when the book came off the press in a very beautiful binding for that time, the stitching, the binding on that book is quite amazing for the time. When that book was ready, then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta announced, now we are ready for preaching in the West. So when they were sent off, there was a very formal occasion in Calcutta before they set sail on a steamship. No flights. No 8-hour flights to England. They set sail on a steamship. And his, it is called his envoy. It is recorded in many places. And that is when he said, go forth with this message of Mahāprabhu to all nations and all creeds of men and women in the world. Carry forth this message, preach it boldly, and listen to what you say, for this will also purify you. So, with this, he sent them out into the world for preaching. The long and the short of that is they came back after about a year, and they had made 2 devotees. They had made 2 devotees. And one of them is a very famous godbrother and friend of Srila Prabhupada. He was a German. His name is Sadananda. If you have the folio, you can look it up. Prabhupada talks a lot about him. And he was the first European devotee in the Hare Krishna movement in 1933. And he received initiation from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. The other German that was with him, I'm not sure what happened to him. I think he went back to Germany after a while. But he came back initially with them. So that's what that was in reference to. So only so much of the knowledge of Godhead can be forced on any living entity. I mean, it's not even forced. It's only loudly shouted, and then any living entity has to turn his head with submission towards that message And then according to that, then we may draw more and more from our source. It is actually our eagerness in the first place to know what is God, which brings Guru into our midst. It is said that if you try to find a Guru on your own, you will most likely accept someone who gives you a rasgula. And that the long and the short of it is, you cannot find Guru. Guru is a descending process. We have our search, that is our sincerity. It is our search, but you can never find. Only it is revealed. Therefore, even if someone has accepted a Guru, but the Guru goes away in devotional service, that person should not feel any hardness, any resentment, or any especially hatred or anything towards that person. One should not feel, oh, I was cheated. One should rather feel, I got what I deserved. And if you examine, you got anything there? Anything good? Maybe the Guru went away. You got anything good there? Any little thing to help you? Any small thing? Well, yes, I got something good. Then you should be very happy. You made a step in the right direction. Now go on with your earnestness and pray to Krishna, and He will send you further guidance. If you blame that even fallen Guru, you're blaming Krishna. You are saying, well, there's nothing wrong with me. I deserve the best. Why am I cheated? You're very self-centered. And self-centeredness distances us from divinity, far, far away. Rather, we should see the only defect is in me. The only defect is in me. This will align us with divinity, and the clouds of so many confusions and misunderstandings will just go away. And the sun of Krishna will shine bright in our life. No one is cheated in this world. Everyone is a self-deceiver and a self-cheater only. No one to blame. Don't blame the environment. Blame one's own self. This is one of the keys on the ring of the secrets, the ring of keys, the secrets, how to progress. Don't blame others. Blame yourself. Yeah, descending process. Our sampradaya is a descending process, not an ascending process. And this has to be kept in mind always. The more you keep it in mind and try to put it into normal practice, the more it becomes not a theory, it becomes the reality. We are in control of nothing. Krishna controls everything. Grace is coming to us. He is everywhere. He is beneath everything. And it just goes away like a fog. Now, for example, I'll give you an example. You cannot serve yourself prasadam unless you're just really hungry and got to go do your service. Prasadam means mercy. Mercy is descending. You cannot conjure your own mercy, actually. Of course, we know. We have a gathering, we do things, isn't it? We have a way that devotees go and get your prasadam and things like that. We know. That's not a problem. But you add all these things together, there are many little things, and suddenly that living conception of everything is descending. It is gone. It vanishes, you see. And it's only a theory. Like Arjuna, he could not put on his own armor. He had kavachas which could protect him against even the thunderbolt of Indra. But if he picked up his armor and sheathed his sword himself for battle, it was all useless. Because these things were benedictions given to him. They required that he had to be dressed in his armor. So we're like Arjuna also in that sense. Many things are given to us, but we have to receive them in a proper way. You cannot receive Gayatri Mantra yourself. You cannot give yourself Gayatri Mantra. You cannot take sannyas. It is something which is given. We receive initiation. We don't take. What you took, you receive. So sometimes we even try to adjust our vocabulary and the way we speak, the way we speak, the way we do the simplest things. I have a very pluralistic experience in Krishna consciousness in the last 15 years, and I hope I can just share it with you without making anyone feel uncomfortable. I have spent many days, many months in the ashrams of some of the senior godbrothers of Srila Prabhupada, particularly two, Srila Sridhara Maharaj and Srila Puri Maharaj, and Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj. And there I saw and I witnessed and I learned many things. Many, many things. Some things on a very practical, day-to-day level, and some things very high philosophical level, you might say. And these things. So one day, many years ago, a devotee came from ISKCON. He came to the ashram of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He was a Prabhupada disciple. He was from South America. So he came, he wanted to take sannyas. He wanted to receive sannyas. So there was some talk. Then Sridhar Maharaj told him, okay, you stay here for some time. We will see. Huh? You try to do some menial service here in the mutt. Jai, that devotee jumped up and ran downstairs. That was his confirmation. So he ran to his room, put on a gamcha, and ran over to the prasadam hall. It was breakfast time. Prasadam was being served. So he ran in and grabbed a bucket and a spoon and started serving prasadam. So one of the older devotees, like 50-year-old devotees, who's in the ashram for 50 years, he came over. What you doing? What are you doing? Oh, I'm serving prasadam. Guru Maharaj told serve prasadam. And he asked, what did he tell you? Oh, Guru Maharaj told me to do some menial service. He said, this is not menial service. Menial service means sweep the cow barn. Serving prasadam, this is Paramahansa Seva. This is who can give the mercy of Krishna? Who can give the mercy of Krishna? Bhakta Bill? Yes, he can be engaged in serving prasadam. He's serving prasadam by carrying the prasadam to the devotees. But what will you value better? A prasadam cookie from your daughter or one from Prabhupada's hand? Same cookie, same offering, same Krishna's plate. You'll value the one from Prabhupada's hand more than the one from your daughter. Or anybody you know. Because the giver of that prasadam also, he's also in that line, mercy line. We know about prasadam, Mahaprasadam, Mahaprasadam. That is also there. Mahaprasadam means Krishna's mercy. Maha means our Guru's mercy. He has also tasted that, Maha, like this. One may take yet another Maha. The devotees honor the Guru's prasadam. He will take that. It's not just word poetries and the neat thing to say and all these things. It's the reality. Mercy is descending. So there are many practices in our tradition. They're very small. Sometimes they're omitted. It's not the end of the earth. But what happens is, and what has happened is over the years, just so many simple little practices have been left aside, and then gradually the certain concept of what we're dealing with. So one of the things that has to happen is we have to deepen our understanding about the simple things that we do. And that is called high devotion. High devotion does not necessitate that it must be rasa lila. Then it is high devotion. No, high devotion means understanding what is prasadam, that you eat 3 times a day. What is serving prasadam? What is sweeping Krishna's floor? And all these seemingly simple, ordinary things. They are not ordinary at all. We have to try to go deep into the substance of even that which is the most insignificant thing. And then we are advancing in Krishna consciousness. And this, what is written on the board behind me, This then is the motto. Pūjala rāgapatha gaurava bhaṅge. Above is written Sri Chaitanya Sarasvatī Parampara. That means from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Chaitanya Sarasvatī Parampara. The Pūjala rāgapatha gaurava bhaṅge, this was a piece of poetry that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta spontaneously composed when they were moving the deities from the house in Ultadanga. That's where Srila Prabhupada first met him. Later on, the Bagh Bazar, this gorgeous temple, was built, and the deities were moved to their new residence. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta led the procession. It was maybe a kilometer's procession to the rounding a few blocks and coming to Bagh Bazar, to the new residence. The deities were on a rath. And at the head of the procession there was Kirtan, and he sang this over and over again. Pūjala rāgapatha gaurava bhaṅge, which means that the highest path, the rāgapatha, we must worship the highest path and keep it always above our head with great respect, with great reverence in divinity. All the disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta who have purported on this verse have explained this verse in this way. Keep the highest plane of divinity above your head. You remain a little distant and below, and never rush into that plane. Never go ahead to that plane. Do not try to taste the highest nectar, for it will elude you. You are not fit for that. Come down and admit you are not fit for that, and work in the lower plane of service. Service of the Vaishnava. Service of the servant of the Vaishnava. Das, 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 anudas. And never, ever admit to anything other than, I am not fit for that. I am not fit for that. And one day you will wake up and you will be home. You will be in home, sweet home. Before leaving this world, you will see everything and you will know everything. Krishna will reveal everything. And seeing that, we will be sad to say, we will lose your company soon, because you will not be able to stay here and he will take you there. Krishna is the positive, and we are a particle of the negative. Our wealth is in such humility and feeling. I am the most unfit. I am not qualified. Now, there's two types of that expression. One is, you're right, you're not fit for this. You should get yourself together and get fixed up. So there's two types of people. They'll say, Prabhu, I'm fallen, I'm just not fit. So, I'm sleeping until 8, I'm not coming to the program, I'm not chanting my rounds. Yeah, you are unfit. You should try to correct that. But there's another type of I am not fit. That is shown to us by Mahāprabhu. He is the emblem of I am not fit. He is the deity of I am not fit. He never said I am fit. He never said I have prema, I have love of Krishna. But the more he was absorbed in love of Krishna, the more and more he expressed, I haven't even a drop of that thing. I don't have a drop of that. But yet he could not give it up. He could not give up the name of Krishna. He could not give up the company of the devotees. He was always absorbed in Krishna consciousness. He could not give it up. Yet he never said, I am the man of that. I have that. It is said that this negative feeling is the heart of Srimati Radharani. It is her heart, it is her arm, leg, it is her head, it is her lip, it is her eye, it is everything that she is. She is the personification of this feeling of inadequacy. I need Krishna, but I have nothing. I have nothing to offer him, but I need him. I cannot exist without him. She experiences that to the most intense degree that Swayam Bhagavan is found by her side eternally. He never goes an inch away from Srimati Radharani. If you hear Krishna is in the arms of Mother Yasoda, that is called Swayam Prakash. That is the first very nice expansion of Krishna in Vatsalya Ras with Mother Yasoda. If you see that Krishna is playing in the fields with Balaram and the cowherd boys, that is also Swayam Prakash in Vrindavan. First class, but Swayam Bhagavan, Prakash means expansion. Swayam Bhagavan is always with Srimati Radharani. Never goes an inch from her side. Magnetic force. She has captured Krishna. So, she is the mother of the devotional school. She is actually the head of our parampara. Ultimately, Radharani is the head of our parampara. Once when I was circumambulating Govardhan Hill, some incident occurred and one devotee said, well, we follow Krishna, he's our Acharya. So I was sitting with some devotees and we all looked at each other and then I said, you're Acharya, not our Acharya. And they were like, what did you say? You're rejecting Krishna? No, but he is not our Acharya. There is a incident? Yeah, there's a... Once the king of Bharatpur came to Govardhan Hill and Radhakund, he came to do Dandapat Parakram of Radhakund. And at that time, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was staying at Radhakund. And one of his disciples, whose name was Paramananda, whom he had raised from the age of 9. Actually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta raised several boys from the age of 9 and 10 up to 90, 95 years old. Some of them, a couple of them are still there. One of them is anyway. So this devotee, his name was Paramananda. He was the personal servant of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And he had been with him since around 19, even before the disappearance of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gorkashordas Babaji. So he came to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in their house where they were staying, and he said, oh, Guru Maharaj, the king of Bharatpur, the Diwan, he has come with his whole family, and they're doing Dandabat Parakram of Radhakund. So if you've been to Radhakund, you know there's the path that goes around Radhakund. And Dandabat Parakram means you do obeisances, and where your hands touch out, you walk to that, and you lie down again in full Dandabats, and in this way going around with the royal family around Radhakund. So he said, oh, the king must have, he must have so much devotion for Radharani. Then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, his devotion and our devotion is just the opposite. He is honoring Radharani with Dandabat Parakram because he has heard that Radharani is the dearmost of Krishna. So the center focus is Krishna. And oh, Radharani is Krishna's dearmost, we must also honor her. He said, our vision is just the opposite. We're only interested in Krishna because he has some connection with Radharani. Gaudiya's focus is Radharani. Actually, Gaudiya Sampradaya is also Suddha Shakti. We're Shaktas. We're worshippers of the potency, ultimately. Not worshippers of the potent. That is, in the higher plane of identification, our acharyas identify themselves as the servants of Srimati Radharani. They are her servants. From Rupa Goswami all the way down. We know the names of almost all of them up to the point of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, who they are in the company of Srimati Radharani. Who they are, what are their names. After that, nothing has been revealed in the last 70-something years. Although there have been preachers, there have been empowered preachers, the eternal identity of any of these preachers has not been revealed to us. But up to the point of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, it was. They are all her loving servitors. Then it is taken to the plane of Leela, and they are the servants of Radha and Krishna. In a simple word, Prabhupada revealed this. Krishna is not beautiful alone. Very simple. The purport of which is very deep. Krishna alone. No beauty. No beauty. No attraction. No sweetness. Nothing desirable. Empty. Go home. Come back with Radha. Then there is beauty. Then there is sweetness. Then I have attraction. Krishna alone, he said, no beauty. What does the mean? Krishna alone, no beauty. Because Krishna alone means Radharani is not there. So their heart is in that way. Externally, only preach about Krishna. Don't preach about Radharani externally. That is the law of the Gaudiyas. Don't go to the mob. Don't go to the masses. Don't go to even the mixed company of devotees under practice and talk of Srimati Radharani. It is not advisable. It is not such a cheap thing. Go to preach about Krishna. Preaching means nam prachar. Preach about the holy name. Preach Bhagavad Gita. That is preaching. That is what has brought everyone here. That is what has brought devotees all over the world. Wherever they are today, in whichever camp or group they are in today, it is actually preaching Bhagavad Gita that has brought them there. So the Bhagavad Gita's day is not over. It has just begun. It is not over. It has just begun. So this was the motto, pūjala, rāgapatha, gaurava, bhaṅge. This became the motto of the movement of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. This is the way in which he prescribed that we should deal with rāgapatha, the rāgamarg, with ras. It must be dealt with in this way. Someone will say, but Prabhupada gave the Krishna book early on. Yeah, he did. But he did not open it for general discussion. You may hear it. Yes, certain topics, even from the beginning. I was a bhakta drinking my cup of hot milk, and I was hearing Krishna's pastimes. But it was not open for our opinion. It is not for that. It is not for discussion. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta forbade his disciples. And who were those disciples that he restricted? He forbade them to read certain books. And he even restricted the discussions about Chaitanya Charitamrita. There are parts of Chaitanya Charitamrita that should not be discussed. They may be heard in the right company, right assembly, in the order. You are in order. You are a person of sadhana, and you are a person of shraddha. You have faith. You have practice. Yes. As the reading is going on, bona fide reading, you may hear these things. There is no gap to enter there and give explanation and take it beyond that. Only hearing, no explanation. And you will see in these places of Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is the talks between Radha and Krishna. Mahāprabhu is expressing certain moods of Radharani. There are no purports. And it's not that he ran out of ink. They are not to be purported. When Mahāprabhu came in touch with the Leela of Krishna, do you know what happened to him? His joints dislocated by 6 inches. He sweated blood. He fell towards the floor, ready to have his teeth smashed out onto the floor. He rubbed his forehead on the wall until blood came. He walked through stone to reach that plane. He vanished from his room. There's not even a window in his room. And the walls are 2 foot, what's called laterite. It's that stone in Orissa, red stone. Thick laterite with plaster. And he walked right through those walls. When you can walk through walls, then you are ready for Lila Katha. Actually, the proof that we can discuss such things as the Leela of Krishna, but actually we're not touching the Leela of Krishna. We're just saber rattling. And so we remain sitting in our chair. Once when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he was giving I think it was Madras actually. He was giving a public discourse and he was sitting in his chair. He often did sit in a chair, kind of like an elegant chair. You've seen some pictures of him posing by a chair. He often sat in a chair. Or when sitting, generally he sat on a small dais. And so in the course of that evening, some gentleman stood up and proclaimed that the Supreme Mother was Parvati. And he spoke in a very concise way, the beauty, the wonder, the charm, the sweetness, the elegance, the omniscience, everything of Parvati. He just hurled this up in front of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. The supreme goddess, the origin of all goddesses, is Parvati. And this was like a javelin being thrown at Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Then he could not ignore what had happened. And the description I heard of that was there was like a hurricane of emotions inside. One is, let the fool go on with his thinking. Let him just pass away. Let him go from here. The other was intolerable just to stay there and let that sound remain in the air. So then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he took the challenge. That it is not so, actually. Parvati herself is an expansion of Srimati Radharani, very distant, the consort of Shiva. And he began to speak something of the greatness of Srimati Radharani. Then his disciples noticed, first began shaking. His hand began shaking, his body began shaking. And his voice began to break up. And suddenly in front of like 1,000 people, he fainted and fell out of the chair onto the floor, and his disciples grabbed him and picked him up. The kirtan began and the program was over. And Srila Sridhara Maharaj, who told us that, he said, my Guru Maharaj was a devotee of Srimati Radharani. That is the proof. And we utter her name and we don't faint. That is the proof. We are not qualified. So, if we go in such an unqualified state to such high things, and we think that we will draw them, the result of it will just come in our heart as love because of the contact of that, we are mistaken. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote a small booklet. It's somewhere, where is it? It's called Prakrita Ras Satadushani. Where's my briefcase? I think it's in there, if I remembered to bring it. I'll just show it to you. It is written in Bengali verse. And Prakrita Ras Satadushani means 100 defects of the Sahajiya school. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said there are thousands of defects. Here are significant 100 defects. And it seems like he reiterates in this 100, and he does in a sense. He reiterates over and over again on one of the defects of the Sahajiya school, is that they want to deal with rasa, but they are not qualified to deal with rasa. And you cannot get rati. Rati means love. You cannot get rati by first approaching rasa. Rati is not born of rasa. Rati is only born of the developmental process of sadhana, vaidhi, sambandha gyan, then vaidhi bhakti. You can just open it somewhere. You can just bring me the book. And anyway, he warns against this time and time and time again. Is it not there? It's inside. He warns against this time and time again. It was sometimes found that this is the little book, Prakrita Ras Satadushani. It's on the internet. It's all over the place, except for it's never quoted by those who go against his direction and his instruction. You will never find them quoting this book. You see. So our parampara is about dealing with the highest plane of divinity. Sometimes people say Prabhupada did not teach Raganuga Bhakti. Such persons are gravely mistaken. Once one Gaudiya sannyasi, he heard that. And I don't know if you'll appreciate this, but he was an elderly Bengali gentleman, sannyasi. He was 67 years old. And they told, and he knew Srila Prabhupada quite well throughout his life from the time of Sitakanta Banerjee Lane. In fact, he grew up in Srila Prabhupada's home as semi-adopted son, so to speak. And he was told, it is being said that Prabhupada didn't teach Raganuga Bhakti. So may I tell you what he said? No one will feel offended. He said, that is bullshit. Whoever said that is bullshit. I said, Maharaj, you've been learning English. As it is. The approach to Raganuga is in Dasiras, not Madhurya Ras. You don't approach Raganuga and Madhurya Ras. You fall flat on your face. If you fall flat on your face early on, you're lucky. If you go on very enthusiastically, that means you've made a big offense. And now you are given the enthusiasm to live in a fool's paradise. If you try to enter the wrong path, but you stumble and fall, that was grace, and you came back. If you become very enthusiastic and you enter deep within the wrong plane, it must be an offense you have committed. And now you are given the inspiration to live in a fool's paradise. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Therefore we say, follow the angels. Don't follow fools. Angels fear to tread there. Don't rush in there. Just come back. How we will get everything. We will get everything from our Guru. Everything. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one of the most rasic devotees to ever cross the face of this earth, he has said in no uncertain terms, your only necessity is to serve your Guru. Whether you feel you are getting anything or you see that you are losing anything, that you have nothing, you have gained nothing, your only duty is to continue in the service of your Guru, and you will get everything. Not that we will go and we'll say, I'm not getting a high taste. My Guru must be bogus. If so, well, there are many devotees, I guess they would have said, even Prabhupada was bogus, or Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was bogus. Nowadays we're in a plane where the taste of the disciple determines the qualification of the Guru. Did it ever dawn on anybody that the disciple's a nonsense and that's why they're not getting any taste? No. The trend is, you have a bogus Guru, that's why you're not getting a taste. Now that is a very unfortunate situation. Yasya prasad bhagavat prasadu, yasya prasada nagati tatopi. By the grace of Krishna we get Guru, and by the grace of Guru we will get Krishna. By the grace of Krishna we get Guru means he is descending to us, subjective, coming down to us. And by pleasing him we will get Krishna. We will be taken up by his agency. Simply we have to please him, however we can please him. However we can please him. I gave example yesterday about this disciple of Shankar Acharya. He was the washer disciple. He was the cleaner disciple. Kind of reminds me of Jayananda Prabhu, our old Jayananda. He was the worker. Take out the trash. Do so many things of needful necessity. He was the chauffeur disciple of Prabhupada. He could also give a class. He wasn't any stupid, that's for sure. He sure didn't know 500 verses, I can tell you that. He didn't know 500 verses. He didn't know 1,000 verses. There are some devotees now, they know 5,000 verses. Well, Jayananda didn't. I'm sure he didn't know 30 or 40 verses. Sarvadharmam prityaja mami kamsaram. Just the, isavashamidam sarvam, the simplest things. So this disciple of Shankaracharya, he was also like that. The example is from Shankar. Even a good thing can be found in Shankar. Shankar Acharya. Mahāprabhu called him Acharya. Shankar Acharya. Although he headed the Mayavadis, he was an Acharya. There is also some good in what he did. He established the Veda as the standard of Shastra and different things. So one day it was time for the lessons. They're studying Vedanta, Nyaya, logic, grammar, all these things. So all the students, they're ready to begin. Shankar told, let Suresh, or whatever his name was, one disciple will come. They told him, Maharaj, he's not very learned. He doesn't catch the lessons. In fact, he doesn't keep notes or anything. So, but we can just go on. Then, we'll wait for him. Shankaracharya said, we'll wait for him. So when he came from the river, when they began, after the formalities of beginning their lesson, then Shankaracharya turned to him and asked him some questions of the previous day's lesson, which were very advanced in their plane of logic. And very expertly, this devotee, he gave the answer. All the disciples with pen and paper and piles of books, they're looking on in wonder. How does he understand this? So this is an example of what's called Vishramba service. It means service to our Guru with heart's affection. We are serving him with all heart's affection. We may not be great scholars. We may not be very learned. But with our heart's affection, we are serving him in all humility. And everything may be known to us. As it is our necessity, it will be known to us. The only qualification. And Srila Prabhupada must have said this 1,000 times. My only qualification, he said. And we would think, oh, there are so many qualifications. Prabhupada, you have qualifications. So many. But he would persistently say, my only qualification, I have some faith in the words of my Guru Maharaj. I have tried to serve my Guru Maharaj. So it is not, and here's the mystery of it all, it's not okay, here's a concession for all the dullards. Here's a concession for all the futzes. Just give your heart and you'll be okay. No, it's what all the great scholars are using scholarship to tell us about. Devotion is about a heartful relation with Guru, Vaishnava, and Krishna. That's what devotion is. It is actually the philosophy, which is for the fools. The gopis are not great philosophers. They don't know Vedanta. They don't know Upanishads. They're simple village girls. But they are the emblem of perfection, of devotion. Mother Yasoda is also not a great philosopher. Mother Sachi was not a great philosopher. The mother of Mahāprabhu. What is the philosophy? What are these great scholars all about? They are giving defense, they are giving support to the central function of devotion. Two things, Shraddha and Śaraṇāgati. These are the only two things that we're really keenly interested in. At the end of life, when death comes, it doesn't matter how great a Vedantist you were, it doesn't matter how many thousand verses you know, it doesn't matter. All these things will vanish. Only two things will be there in the core of your existence. Even the name of Krishna may not be able to come into your tongue or into your mind. But in the core of your existence, two things are there. Your faith and your surrender. And these are the sum and substance which make the Leela of Krishna, which constitute the movement of Krishna's Leela. Everyone there is fully surrendered. Everyone there is the full embodiment of faith, Shraddha, which in its fullest form is prema, divine love. So, some people say that Prabhupada only gave ABC. Our parampara is ABC. And Krishna says, of letters of the alphabet, I am A. I recently heard that there were 9 processes of devotional service, but book distribution wasn't one of them. It's the other way around. Book distribution is the culmination of all of them. It is all of them. If we open the page and go to each one of those things, even prayer. Prayer. What prayer? You ever known a book distributor that didn't pray? No, all book distributors pray. It's one of the toughest things we've ever been asked to do. Go out and sell a book to somebody. In fact, book distributors are intense prayers. Every aspect of devotional service is included there. But superior to distributing the book is writing the book. That is true. Who will give the book? It is a higher service categorically. Maybe take it as a higher service. Mahāprabhu was one of the first book distributors in the Krishna consciousness movement. He found the Brahma Samhita in Kerala in South India, very close to our ashram where we live, just a day's drive away. And in another place in central India, he found Krishna Karnamrita by Bilva Mangala Thakur. And these 2 books he had hand-copied, no printing presses then, hand-copied. He waited patiently for a pundit to copy the books, and he brought them back to to the devotees in Orissa and Jagannath Puri, and he distributed those copies to Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy and told, make copies for all the devotees. So the father of book distribution also, Mahaprabhu. And an interesting thing about Srila Prabhupada and his point in the Parampara, and we're going to get around to discussing all the things of the Parampara, but I'm just trying to work my way into some way of approaching these things. Srila Prabhupada valued the order to write books or print books as his life and soul. He valued this order so much. Order received from his Guru. My Guru Maharaj told. The order from his Guru was to do that. He valued it so much. One day it just dawned on me, what is behind that order? What deep spiritual reality is there behind that order? If you ever get money, print books. It seems common in a sense. But the place where he received it is the most uncommon place in the universe, Radhakund. The place of the most intimate and divine leelas of the divine couple, where the participants number a handful. In Vrindavan there is a Rasa Leela. There are a few million present. At Govardhan there is also Rasa Leela. The assembly is significantly smaller. And in Radhakund, it is a hand-picked selection of the servants of Radha and Govinda. They are there, and no others are there. The most sacred place in this universe, the most sacred place in the spiritual universe, Radhakunda. On the banks of Radhakunda, Prabhupada received this instruction. And who did he receive it from? He received it from his Guru, who himself is considered to have descended from that world and that realm, and who is himself one of the eternal servants of Srimati Radharani, Nayana Mani Manjari. So from a handmade servant of Radharani at Radhakund, this message comes to our Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. If you ever get money, print books. And what books did he decide to print? Srimad Bhagavatam, described as the greatest scripture ever to have seen the light of day. Means to have ever entered this universe. Srimad Bhagavatam. It is exclusive to the point if all the Vedas are burned today, if the Bhagavatam is salvaged, nothing is lost. But if you have studied the Vedas from width and breadth and height and bottom and all of that, but you did not study the Bhagavatam, you are still mudha in comparison. What the Bhagavatam has to offer surpasses all of the other Vedas, although piece by piece by piece, little by little by little, some here and there throughout the Vedas, Upanishads, some piece. But Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of all of that. All in one, ripened fruit. Everything else not so ripened, but some indication. Bhagavatam, the ripened fruit. So he focused there on that book also. And literally, to moments before his last breath came out of the body, he gave that breath to that order of his Guru Maharaj. And simultaneously he uttered a few other words, which were, rise up early in the morning, chant your rounds, keep yourself in the mode of goodness. A very basic fundamental thing. Without the foundation, your big building will fall over in future. It must be founded. So, very, not founded, grounded, very substantial. You take your stand. Like in the fighting arena, a man doesn't just jump up and whip his arms around. He plants his feet first, takes his stand. Otherwise, first wind, first blow, he is over. So, such things as book distribution, although I haven't been out on a book table or things in years, I know very well this is the culmination of many things. Many things, the culmination of many things. But even the highest thing, such as that, it can be dealt with in a very material way. We can groom a group of book distributors and spoil their spiritual life also, simply by pushing them towards pratishtha and honor and thinking that they're better than the cook or the sweeper or the farmer and many things. You can take the highest thing and you can spoil it also. So, admittedly, yes, that has happened. I have seen it happen. I've sometimes possibly participated in making it happen. But the fact is that this service, what is book distribution? This is service. It is at least one of the 9, and if we examine it more, it is all of the 9 and more. And more, even. Atmanivedanam means the and more. It goes on and on. Life of surrender, sacrifice, surrender. This is there. So there are many things which are being told. The Prabhupada taught the ABCs, not the XYZs. That book distribution is actually not in the process of devotional service. That if you received Gayatri Mantra on a tape, you're actually not initiated. Anyway, there's a long list of things which are very inaccurate. Very, very inaccurate. And these things sometimes gain ground because we ourselves, although truthful to our creed, we ourselves may not know. In a peaceful environment, you don't need to know how to fight. You don't need to know how to fight. But suddenly, if someone invades, what to do? You cannot just say, I'm a peaceful soul. You will have to fight. And in the beginning, the most regrettable day is you don't even have a weapon, right? We've all been there before when somebody attacked the temple and there wasn't even a weapon. Then after that day, the weapons are all in place forever. Any devotee who's been in a temple that's been severely attacked doesn't live far from that baseball bat, shotgun, whatever it is. He never wants to live that day again, you see. So, in a similar way, devotees are like that sometimes. They're simply going on with their service, heartfelt service, doing service, developing a community, printing a book, doing some design work, doing so many things of service. And they are sometimes neglectful of the detail or the deeper thing of which they're involved in. And then something comes along and says, you're not even really involved in it. You're not involved in Raganuga. And then it's like, all of a sudden, they're shaken from that. So this goes on all over the world these days. Devotees are shaken in their service. They are sometimes shaken in their very faith. I'm sorry to say that one of Prabhupada's oldest disciples in Europe joined the Sahajiyas this year and took Siddha Pranali initiation in Vrindavan and left. And he was a guru in ISKCON and a lifetime brahmachari also. And he announced that, well, I want to be Shastrik. I want to follow Shastra. So he went to Haridas Shastri, one of the old formidable enemies of Prabhupada and enemies of Gaudiya Math. He went there to that side, to be expert in Shastra. Technically, 2 of those sons are Madris, and 3 are hers. Madri entered the funeral fire with Pandu. They are the Panch Pandavas, but they're not the Panch Kundiyas. Kuntiyas. 2 are Madris. Now, there was one Indian gentleman years ago, he wrote a horrific letter saying that Prabhupada was not fit to be an Acharya because he didn't even know the Mahabharata correctly. And he made much of this mistake. It can be seen as a mistake. Made much of this. So, people point to such things as that, like singing the samsara prayers for Mangalarti. People will criticize that. Naming of deities, Rukmini Dwarkadish, Radha Parthasarathi in Delhi. There are many little nitpicky things. But and in one sense, they are not standard. There are some of these things that they're not standard. They don't follow just the order of rasa, you see. But they demonstrate to us other things very significant and very, very meaningful, including the mistakes. This one particular one I'm talking about, the Pandavas and the Kunti. And that demonstrates that love of Krishna does not depend on such learning. The Bhagavatam itself even says, even though inaccurately described, poorly composed, nonetheless, what is Bhagavatam? What is Bhagavatam? What is the central focus in Bhagavatam? The glorification of Krishna. Nonetheless, even imperfect from the so-called standard of material perfection and knowledge, it is considered perfect, more than perfect. Although it may appear to have so many discrepancies, perfect knowledge is not the qualification of love of Krishna. Faith and surrender are the only two qualifications to obtain love of Krishna. So even in those types of things, rather than just say, oh, these persons are offensive, oh, they're just minimizing Prabhupada, we have to look and accept, yes, there is a mistake, and this mistake is there so that you will know that the perfection of devotion does not depend on the perfection of knowledge. That's the thing. And I'm telling you, in my life, there are things. It's like we all say everything is in Prabhupada's books. And the question is, what is the thing? What is the thing that everything is there? Everything is in Om. We generally hate Om. Devotees sort of hate Om. They say, Om, why are you wearing Om? My what? Om is the sound of Krishna's flute. From the sound of Om, the three-syllable Gayatri, the Gayatris came from there, including the Kama Gayatri. Then Gayatri herself was born from that. The mother of the Vedas, the Bhagavatam itself comes from Om. Om comes from the sound of Krishna's flute. There is divinity there. So rather than let the Mayavadis run away with the Om and claim it as their own, no. We'll take it to its deeper side. Om, its three syllables, represent Radha, Krishna, and the Jiva, the living entity. His service relationship with the divine couple. It doesn't belong to the Mayavadis. They're the thieves. It belongs to us. So a deeper insight, not to run from the thing and say, no, everything he said is perfect, then change the Mahabharata. And that's also there we have that feeling. If there's any kind of what somebody's called a mistake, change the Mahabharata, you see. No, not like that. It doesn't go like that. These things are there. They're like tests, you see. So generally, the truth is none of these mistakes are serious. They're all in the field of misnomer, actually. 5 sons of Kunti, or 3 of Kunti, and 2 of Madri doesn't change the situation much at all. It doesn't change anything, you see. There was sometimes it is said that the deity is Rāgapatha Sarathi. This is Rasa Bas. I don't know if you've heard all these things, but I get around the world and
we've heard.
You've heard. Rāgapatha Sarathi is Rasa Bas. So one day, Tripurari Maharaj and I, he called me on the phone. He said, people were saying that Prabhupada's, because he knows I was in India, he said, do you know, did Prabhupada name those deities? And I said, no, I don't think he did. I think Tejas did. I think Tejas gave the name to the deities. He said, well, they're saying that this is Rasa Bas. And I said, well, just hang on. I'll look it up in the folio. So we just happened to look up Radha Parthasarathi, and there came the conversation. Achyutananda, our old godbrother Achyutananda Swami, he says, Prabhupada, the deities in Delhi, Radha Parthasarathi. And Prabhupada says, yes. And he goes, is that Rasa Bas? And Prabhupada said, no, I find no Rasa Bas there. And he said, of course it is not standard name. Not standard name. Then, how sometimes Prabhupada would just kind of half sentence it, just kind of not speak the whole thing out. He said, not Rasa Bas. I find no Rasa Bas there. No Rasa Bas there. But shouldn't have done. Not standard name. But no Rasa Bas. Then he said, wherever there is Krishna, there is Ladini. Radharani is there. Wherever there is Krishna, we see Ladini must be there. If Krishna is there, then Ladini is there. But Parthasarathi means chariot driver of Arjuna. That was 50 years after Radharani went to Kurukshetra and met Krishna at Kurukshetra. 50 years later. It's in that way, it is not just all lined up. Rukmini Dwarkadish, very similar. The fault that is found there, anyway, the point, you understood, Prabhupada said, I find no rasa boss there. So then I just say, it's good enough for Prabhupada, it's good enough for me. So I don't feel to change the name of the deities in Delhi, Radhapartha Sarthi. So Rukmini Dwarkadish in Los Angeles is also similar. Dwarka. What is the name of the place? New Dwarka. Who rules in Dwarka? Dwarkadish. Krishna. Dwarkadish. Who's the first queen in Dwarka? Rukmini. Rukmini Dwarkadish. Has anybody ever saw those deities and didn't understand it's Radha and Krishna? Has anybody actually thought it was Rukmini? Rukmini and Dwarkadish in New Dwarka? No, there's never been any, I don't think anybody, even somebody that just accidentally, it hasn't been accidentally thought, oh no, that's Rukmini. That's Rukmini. Everybody knows that's Radha and Krishna. Called Rukmini Dwarkadish. And the reason it gives them such a problem is that when Dwarka Leela is manifest, Krishna goes to Dwarka as Vasudeva, as an expansion. Actually, he never leaves Vrindavan. Then the gopis, they expand themselves as different queens and become Krishna's queens at Vrindavan. And Vaikuntha goes down from there. And Vasudeva expands himself as Narayan, and the queens expand themselves as Lakshmis. Goes down from there, comes into this material world. Krishna becomes Shiva, and the Lakshmis become Parvati. Lakshmis become Durga. There's one place in the Durga Purana, suddenly Durga raises her hands and says, I am Radha. I am Radha of Braj. And we're like, whoa, where is she at? 6, 8 arms, big tongue. Woo! What that is a little reflection of the ego of where she comes from. Comes up, what I am, where do I come from? Yes, you, Mother, you also came from there. You are an expansion from there. Many, many times down the line. In the beginning, the Supreme Mother, the Supreme Goddess, Lakshmi. All Devis descend from that side. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
that's all right.
The Shaktas that worship that Durga, do they get some blessing from Radha?
No. Mahaprabhu visited the Durga Temple in Kanyakumari. No, he visited a few Durga temples. He went and took the darshan. But he is looking from that obscure point, and he is seeing to the origin. They are not seeing to the origin. Just like it says basil is called the cousin of Tulsi. Basil, the plant basil. But Prabhupada said, we're not interested in Tulsi's cousin. So although she's Tulsi's cousin in the botanical world, you don't get any benefit by offering artik to basil. You see. Everything has its origin. Even we living entities, we have our origin in Krishna. But if we worship one of those living entities as Krishna, we make a big offense, you see. If we take the ambassador to be the president, that creates a problem. That creates a problem. If we take the ambassador to be the delegation, then it goes in that way. So there is no harm. Sometimes devotees in India, we are forced in a circumstance where we're in somewhere and the prasad is given. If it's a place where Mahaprabhu went, Shiva temple or Durga temple, we honor the prasadam. If not, we usually carry it and leave it for the fish to a place and we give it to the fish. If it's just a Hindu Durga temple and all these things, because no proper conception is there, we don't take that prasadam. Ganesh means rat prasadam. We don't eat rat prasadam. Ganesh prasad means rat prasadam. But when in a place where Mahaprabhu himself had gone and had darshan of the deity, we may accept that in that line. Remember, Mahaprabhu himself came here and his far-reaching vision, what he sees there. So something like that. But where was I back in the comment? Yeah, so Rukmini Dwarkadish. So no one ever took it that is Rukmini. And the long and short of the problem is that when all the queens, the residents of Braj, the gopis become queens, then Chandravali, who is the competition of Radharani in Vrindavan, she becomes Rukmini. So this is what those people really struggle with, is that it's not that just the name, it's Rukmini herself is Chandravali. She's the competition of Radharani. And Satyabhama is Radharani. Radharani becomes Satyabhama. So Rupa Goswami has explained this, their identities in this way, and that it is taken that in the highest plane, feeling is everything. Now this is the point which we like to see about this. Feeling is everything. Radharani is feeling. Everything is from her heart. Everything is feeling. Chandravali has little intelligence. She has cunning intelligence. And her way to capture Krishna is to outsmart the other party, to outsmart Radharani's party, to make arrangements in their drama, to trick them and to separate them by trickery. She is little intelligent. But Radharani's all method of capturing Krishna is love, just heartfelt affection and love. So in the highest plane of reality, heart feeling and affection has the supreme position. But going down a little lower, even to the plane of Dwarka, which is considered to be the highest plane in Vaikuntha, intelligence gets the upper hand. Calculation is found there. Calculation, intelligence. So when coming down one lower level, then Radharani comes to a little less position as Satyabhama. And Chandravali, she gets a first position. Intelligence holds the upper hand in a lower stratum. In the higher stratum, feeling, only love holds the upper hand, you see. But we are told by Rupa Goswami, Chandravali is an expansion of Radharani. There is no Chandravali. It is only her. But played out in such a degree that her servants, they get really upset when Chandravali's servants come around. But ultimately, Chandravali is an expansion of Radharani. No one can compete with Radharani. No one can compete. So she creates some competition for herself. Okay. So then it goes, Radharani is also Chandravali, and Chandravali is also Rukmini, and Rukmini Dwarkadish. That is also all right. And it is New Dwarka. But even without knowing so much about the intricacies of those things, did anybody think they were worshipping Rukmini? If so, only Radharani with the name Rukmini. I'll have to look. Maybe in Radha Sahasranam, Rukmini's name may be there in Radha Sahasranam. Parvati's name is there. Lakshmi is Radharani's name. In Radha Sahasranam, almost Sarasvatī, all the Devis, they are all her. Just like in Vishnu Sahasranam, Shiva. Who's Shiva? Krishna is Shiva, Narayan is Shiva. Who's Shiva? He's Shiva Das. Shiva means auspicious, all auspicious. Who's that? That's Narayan. That name is there, Vishnu Sahasranam. So, yes, I'm sorry. Not sure. Once I was asking Dwarkadish Das, the young Gurukul boy at the time, and he was telling me when I arrived at the temple in 1970, as far as I know, they were Rukmini Dwarkadish. He was telling me something once, and I never could find out for sure how the deities were named, whether he gave them the name or the devotees named like that. Now, what was very, very, very prominent was second canto Bhagavatam at the time, Dwarka. I mean, that's where we were at. There was no third canto at that time. Second canto was all that was out in 1970, not even all of that. And Krishna and Dwarka, and Krishna entering Dwarka, and that set the mood. This is another trouble that comes up. We got the whole thing in increments like this, you see. We used to get chapter at a time, you know. And we got the Krishna book in the beginning. Let me mention this point because it'll go away. Dwarka is Aishvarya. So what did happen? Although the movement is a Ragamarg movement, much of the mood of Aishvarya, opulence and grandeur, and all this type of thing was picked up by the movement in the beginning, because all we could hear about at length was the Dwarka Leela. And even in Bhagavatam it is there, the Aishwarya Leela of Krishna and Dwarka. So that a lot of that was imbibed. So between that, the place becoming known as New Dwarka, then either from Prabhupada or the devotees became like that. But he had one.
I think that in 1970, actually, that happened because Prabhupada established the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust in 1970, and then he named Los Angeles as his world headquarters.
Yeah, right.
And he named it
New Dwarka
as the prime example, the standard for the entire movement of deity worship and all the other forms of service.
That's when Mother Śrīla was in charge.
Yeah. So that's how that came about. Prabhupada made it its world.
Yeah, it was. It was the world headquarters. It was the standard. Wait, he had one first. Yeah.
There's a devotee with the name of Kṛṣṇa.
I know him.
He made some research regarding this, and he was showing us a letter that Prabhupada called these deities Radha Krishna deities.
Well, they are Radha Krishna deities, but then they weren't named Radha Krishna deities. They were Radha Krishna. Everybody knows. Every little kid knows. Every little boy and girl growing up New Dwarka knows that's Radha and Krishna. Nobody thinks it's Rukmini, but the name is Rukmini. Then, let me see. There was Gayatri. Oh, that was another thing, but there was something else. It'll come back later. Somebody told that if you didn't hear Gayatri directly from Prabhupada, that you weren't initiated. And therefore he had... you weren't qualified to receive the Gayatri. Oh, that's the point. Let me go back one step. So, it has been said that Prabhupada, he didn't like these things, Radhapartha Sarathi, Rukmini Dwarkadish, etc. But he couldn't, what could he do? He couldn't do anything about it. Such persons don't know, if he told me to cut your head off, you'd be in sad shape. That's how much. If Prabhupada wanted to sit on the chair and say, now, the bottom line is, I am Lord Balaram. The only sound you would hear after that would be, Jai! And then he'd probably go, you idiots, give a slap. Haven't I taught you anything? Guru is not God. But the fact is, when Prabhupada wanted to do something, I remember, anybody who was around then remembers, Karandar got this letter. He asked Prabhupada, what's the ideal diet? And Srila Prabhupada said, fruit and milk in the morning, one piece of fruit, 1 cup of milk. Cups were about this big. I would have loved to have had a cup that big. They were this big, little Dixie cups. 1 piece of fruit, 9 chickpeas. 9 chickpeas with a little bit of ginger, 1 cup of milk, and 1 scoop of cereal for those that are hungry. For those that are hungry. For lunch, 2 chapatis, 1 scoop dal, same dinky little cup, 1 cup dal, 1 scoop cereal, same, 1 scoop sabji, 1 scoop rice, 2 chapatis. Then anything that was left over after Sankirtan, those who were hungry could have that. That diet was implemented the day that letter arrived. There were, I remember, Dayananda Prabhu was temple president. Keshava was the Sankirtan leader. Keshava was a hearty Sankirtan man and a big eater. And I was doing my share. And so was every other brahmachari and brahmacharini there. We could really pack it away. So it just, in a day, our diet was cut to what we figured was starvation. And it was wintertime. It was wintertime. And there was a letter Prabhupada said. That's it. That changed everything in that temple. That was the diet. Then on the 3rd day, just on the brink of starvation, I guess Prabhupada enlightened someone in their heart. They went out and got bigger cups, bigger serving spoons, and they made the chapatis so big and so thick, you could hardly eat 2 of them. In this way, we kept the order perfectly. And we're able to fill our bellies as was required and go out on Sankirtan. In those days, devotees were chanting 7, 8, 9, 10 hours every day in the street. You see? So when a person says that Prabhupada knew something, but he couldn't tell you, that person or persons doesn't have the vaguest idea of what Prabhupada's movement was and what power he had over us. One day, we're walking in Hyderabad in 1976. It's a full moon morning, so the moon is just setting, setting, Hyderabad farm. Prabhupada walks and he stops. When he would stop, everyone would just circle around. When he'd walk, there'd be like a trail. When he would stop, it would just come around him because he's going to talk. He looked at the moon, he pointed with his stick, and he said, "My theory is the moon is a fiery planet surrounded by an atmosphere of ice, and therefore its light and rays have a cooling effect." And then he said, "What do you think of my theory?" Jai Prabhupada. Now, in another plane, I don't think so. There's no ice around there. It's not a fiery planet. It's a cold, whatever. It's beyond our knowing in one sense. But it's not beyond the knowing of some people. They say they've gone there. They say they've sent their probes there. Although it was adamantly refuted for years in Australia. And the Prabhupada said, "Oh, they may have gone." It was like, "But Prabhupada, you said they didn't go. We're out there like banging their door down, Prabhupada said, "They say there is no God. I say they didn't go to the moon. They tell us to prove it. I say they didn't prove it. Argumentum, bacildum, it means just fight with them, So I always had a curiosity because my father was in the space program and astronauts were friends of our family, some of the first astronauts. And my father used to go out on the big ships in the ocean and pick these guys up when they would come down in the sky. So if they were just hoking up the whole thing out in the desert somewhere, I figured they had about 50,000 military totally hoodwinked. They were doing something going somewhere. At any rate, what Prabhupada said on that day, we were ready to go to the rug with any scientist of the world. If there to come an issue the next day about the moon, definitely Rabindranath Swarup would have been out there writing the moon has got a layer of ice around it. And Hansadutta would be saying it's burning like the sun. So sometimes I wonder, maybe Srila Prabhupada just did that just to see us dance, But the point is that whatever he wanted to correct in us, he could correct that. Once the GBC decided no householders can live in the temple. If you were there that year, I think it was 76. Yeah, it was 76. Something was decided. No householders could live in the temple or on temple property. They all had to live outside. And they brought those resolutions before Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada looked at him and told him, "This will ruin my movement. Take your resolutions back to the meeting." He threw it out. He changed the resolutions of the year to read in something more sane, what he thought was sane. Very dear friends, Brahmananda Swami, Brahmananda Prabhu used to tell me the story. They realized it. You don't get it? Prabhupada is Krishna. Prabhupada is Krishna. And 6 sannyasis started preaching this around Prabhupada's movement. I mean, to Srila Prabhupada and to the Vaishnava and the Guru, this is like the thunderbolt right on the forehead. After 4 years of a movement, after having 8 sannyasi disciples, opening temples in London and all around the world in different places, they think I'm Krishna. Oh my God. And he threw them out immediately. He gave the word, don't go to any of my temples. You're not allowed to preach in my temples. And he cleared the forest of that misconception. And after some months, he called them back and they were established. So whenever anything went wrong that was detrimental to our welfare, our well-being in Krishna consciousness, which was misrepresentative of Krishna consciousness, he would correct that. And whatever he said, it was just accepted. So if he felt that the names Rukmini Dwarkadis were so out of place, that it is a horrific aparad, or the names of Radha Parthasarathi in Delhi, then he would have simply changed their names, and that'd be the end of the story. And Tejas and anybody, everyone would have just accepted it. There wouldn't even have been an utterance of an argument, except for from the greatest fool that ever walked the face of the earth. And some fools like that. They're also there. And as Prabhupada's disciples, they came, a few of them. Great fools. They raised their head against his divine grace. Unfortunate souls. So whoever says that he wanted to change something and he couldn't, doesn't know the history, they don't know the substance of the people that were there, don't have a clue. Maybe 20 years later they see a scattered situation. Some people call it a burnt remnants in areas of Prabhupada's movement. Certainly we cannot raise our head and say things are just as good as they were then. No. Many things have, many mistakes, many wrong turns, many things have gone down, many things. But we can never say that it was this way from its beginning. No. People marvel about the Guru Nishta of Prabhupada's disciples of that movement and even the generation that follows after that. They have great faith in Srila Prabhupada. It is called, in Gaudiya, it's called Guru Nishta, very fixed in Guru and his order. So at the same time saying, well, he couldn't change it because, but at the same time they recognize such a great Guru Nishta. Then in the next breath they will say, this is bogus, singing the samsara prayers at Mangalartik, you see. But then I say, so if you want to know what is Guru Nishta, and you want to see your disciples have Guru Nishta, maybe you ought to introduce it in your temples also. We won't admit, this is wrong. This, also Guru Puja, daily Guru Puja, these are things which are not, they're not standard Gaudiya practices. Samsara, Mangalartik. Elaborate puja for the Guru on a daily basis. This is never even seen in the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Nonetheless, these things gave great life to the devotees and the spearhead of the Sankirtan movement. And because it gave such life to the devotees, Prabhupada encouraged it. You see, it gave life. And it was the plea of the devotees, actually, to be able to do this. It started out very modestly, if you'll remember, offering a flower to Prabhupada on the Vyasasana, saying in English the translation. We used to sing the prayers in the morning, then when he would sit on the Vyasasana, we would speak the translation. There wasn't a puja. Actually, it is Achyutananda. He learned the puja. When he lived with Srila Sridhara Maharaj for 1 year, he learned about Guru Puja. There in the song.
When did that start, Guru Puja? I remember 74 in Moscow.
Yeah, 74. It comes up 73, 74. As we know it today, it started then. And it was Achyutananda who introduced the song, Sri Guru Charana Padma, that was sung. It is not that it was selected. So a lot of things, they just some things Prabhupada gave, some things other devotees gave, researched, they came. Palena Priya Prichate. This was Prabhupada's motto. Judge it by the result. It got things going forward. We were looking at our life, theoretically, we could die at any moment. Practically, we knew we were going to live a long time. We were young. Now we think, any moment could be getting a lot closer. Now we're 50-ish, going 60, and so forth, you see. Prabhupada was already 70-ish, past. So he wasn't thinking. Everything was an emergency situation. Whatever worked best now, do it now. Now, we cannot spare the loss of time. In Bombay, Bombay, India, microphones. Prabhupada's getting ready to speak, but the microphone falls down. Chutananda gets it, puts it in, falls down. Prabhupada says, tie it. He runs around the stage. Prabhupada, there's no string, no rope. He says, use the one around your neck. So Chutananda takes off his Brahman's thread and wraps it around that thing, ties that thing down. That was Prabhupada's movement. If that happened, even in Gaudiya Math, many people would go, you have to be reinitiated. I've seen boys almost go mad when their Brahman's thread kind of almost washes off in the Ganga, and they're just like, and they get it by their finger, and you go, you're still a Brahmin. And say, it just gets to be a habit, like if that thread separates from you, you're not a Brahmin anymore. So, that's there. We should respect that thread. We shouldn't separate ourselves from that thread. But our connection to being a twice-born Brahma-initiated disciple is not dependent on the thread. If it was, there would be no twice-born mothers, would there? Because they don't wear a thread. So the thread is actually symbolic. But just because it's symbolic, don't throw your Brahman's thread in your shoe. Brahman's thread is a symbol of sacredness. It's a symbol of our connection to our Guru in Parampara. Once Prabhupada said it is the symbol, the mark of the Dvija who has accepted Guru. He has this sacred thread. But at the time of great necessity, take that thing and tie it around the microphone. These are 5,000 people waiting to hear out here. And we're going to futz around about, a little piece of cotton thread. Tie it. So that was the spirit of Prabhupada's movement. But then, if every doorknob that's fallen off, you're whipping off your Brahman's thread and tying it around that, it's like, no, that's not what the example was to be. Maybe it should never ever happen again. Just the necessity of the time warranted even that. And the result then, Prabhupada spoke nicely to a group of few thousand people in a Bombay pandal. Well, that was his mood. What needed to be done must be done. And those things that produced that overwhelming result, then those things should be continued. So this is hard for many people to understand. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta indeed had standards. Srila Prabhupada did indeed adjust many of those standards. Some people fault us grievously for that. However, if you could also fault Srila Bhaktisiddhanta because he also adjusted the standards, you see. He adjusted the standards. So the form may be adjusted, but the substance must be maintained. You can bottle in a different bottle. Prabhupada gives that type of prayer, homage to his guru. Same message, but in a new dress, or he calls it in a new bottle. He writes in one poem. It's the same message, the same medicine, but he has bottled it differently, you see. But if in the bottling process the formula is changed, this will be a problem, you see. So the formula must be maintained, but the dress, the presentation of that, it may vary. Sometimes devotees ask, why do you have such a big sika? Because where I live, if you have no sika, you're a karmi or a mayavadi. If you have a small sika, you're a smarta brahmin. If you have a big sika, you're a Vaishnava. That's South India. Smartas, small sika. Mayavadis, no sika. And the Sri Vaishnavas, who are the biggest representation of Vaishnavism in the South, a big sika. Sometimes they just cut just this little piece, about a 1/4 inch width, in huge sika. So big sika means Vaishnava. Not smarta, not mayavadi, you see. So some adjustment to the environment. Some country, no sika. That does not mean you're mayavadi. You have to work. You live outside. Some sikas could get you put in the prison camps in Russia 20 years back. A sika could get you a course of electrical brain shocks. No sikas in Russia. You hide the sika. Does that mean they're not Vaishnava? No, that is an external of the Vaishnava. But where the external will not bring in some jeopardy, will not jeopardize, then these are our trappings, these are our externals. We were happy to accept them. But some adjustment may be made. One adjustment is that in order to distribute books, we were allowed to wear the non-devotional dress. And this created a big uproar then, still now. They even tried it once in Bombay. The devotees decided to go out and sell books and dressed in normal clothing. Right? And they go to the airport. The next day the CBI was there. So what are you people doing? What are you spies? What are you doing? It was just, don't do that. It was unaccepted there. Unaccepted, you see. Once in Africa, there was a devotee, Brahmanadi, he was in jail. A Bhagavat Das had to go get him out of jail, so he thought, if I show up there as a devotee, they can just throw me in jail, right? So he put on, we all had when we traveled there, what's called a safari suit. It's a little dignified button up and all. So he put on a safari suit and put a sika under his hat, and he came out of his room. We were staying in a life member's house. And the life member, you're bogus. Get out of my house. So the guy just flipped. No, but I'm going to the police. Go, go. I mean, he just tore up his card and just became mad. You changed your dress. Bogus. And he just, but, and he out of the house. No, but I'm going to the police station. They could, remember, you depend on Krishna if you're a real bhakta. I don't know about that. Krishna gave me some intelligence and a safari suit. So, but for some people this is ununderstandable. And they have never gone on a Harinam in Times Square at New Year's Eve. They have never crossed the border into Russia, driving a van, smoking a cigarette, listening to rock and roll. Hi. Half the gas tank full of Bhagavad Gitas. Yeah, throw that nasty thing down and boom, head for the underground preaching center. That's right. I know devotees, that was the way. You know, and a little bit of booze on the mouth too, a little bottle in the back, just as mundane and down and funky as you could look. That's what they see every day. But devotees just look suspicious. They don't have any of the bad trappings of the materialist. So they would intentionally contaminate their appearance. Because devotees have a natural sattvic appearance, mostly. You see somebody sometime and it's like, is that a devotee? It's hard to hide a devotee, you know. So, but they would hide and they would enter. And then they would leave those things. Like Arjuna. He changed his dress to the sannyas dress, actually. He changed his dress several times. To get the hand of Subhadra, he became a sannyasi, a bogus sannyasi. Oh, was that Arjuna? Yes, that was Arjuna, right? Yeah. And then wants to fight with, who did he fight with? Jarasandha or somebody? Yes, he, Krishna, and Bhima went dressed as Brahmins. You see, so change the dress. It was required sometimes. So depending on the service necessity, it may be required. So much of that was the call, the creed in Srila Prabhupada's movement. Those who don't know the value of what he was doing at the time look back in time and they find fault with that, these types of things. You see. So again, in current times, there may be necessity of some adjustments. Devotees will have to, actually it's the problem, just to stick to the past. We move on into the future. So, you know, it comes up. There will be adjustments. There will be decisions. Things will have to be done in the future. And it will depend on those living devotees to make the necessary adjustments, whatever they may be. But if they are at least partially intelligent, they will reflect to the past. You see. Reflect on the past. What is already shown? What is the standard? How to move? Oops. Yes?
There are examples within our movement of adjustments that were fiascos, like the merging of religions,
Yes.
Hybrid forms of Vaishnavism.
Yes, therefore, we should not be anxious to just say, oh, there have been adjustments in the past and start reshuffling the whole deck. That can be a problem. To readjust what a previous acharya has given is very touchy business. Very, very delicate. You know, in the course of Vaishnavism, parampara, there have been some noted Rasika devotees, what are called Rasikas. There are 2 or 3. Shamananda, not Shamananda, Rasikananda. His name was Rasikananda. Rasikananda Prabhu, Vishwanath Chakravarti Ṭhākura. They are followed. The immediate generation, the disciple of Vishwanath is Baladev. Baladev is very, very, very reserved. He does not take the plane of his guru to imitate. Very, very reserved. Jiva Goswami also, extremely reserved Vaishnava. His guru, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Rupa Sanatan and Raghunath, these are his gurus. But in a most reserved manner, he dealt with what he saw in them, what he found in them, even what was exhibited by them in their ecstasy. He did not make this his plane of activity. He was very reserved in how he dealt with that. Not that he just carried that on and made that the established mood. But sometimes that higher mood, it is possible, but it is not the standard of practice at that time. It does not become the standard of practice. So the Gayatri was sometimes given on a tape. And it has been said that if you did receive the Gayatri by tape, that you weren't really qualified. So I thought, well, the first thing, it was amazing that always the people that weren't qualified happened to be somewhere else other than where Prabhupada was. And wherever he was, they just happened to be qualified. Because he never sat in front of somebody and then said, well, you just listen to the tape, because they were unqualified. Whoever listened to the tape was thousands of miles away. So they would listen to the tape. So years later, in the ashram of Prabhupada's godbrother, Śrīla Sridhara, many Western devotees came. Prior to that, in no ashram of Prabhupada's godbrother were there Western devotees other than one or two. And many started to come and go back, and some were initiated, and so forth. Then the situation came. Many were from South America. Chile, for example, very poor country. Coming to India for them is a once-in-a-lifetime dream. So many had come, gotten first initiation, gone back. Sometime later in their temple, in their ashram, then they were to receive second initiation, but they couldn't come to India. So this situation rose up. And then they suggested to Śrīla Mahārāja that, well, a tape could be made. A Gayatri tape could be made. And then those disciples of yours, they could hear from this tape. Then Śrīla Mahārāja is telling, tape? What is tape? A tape recorder will make tape. And he had seen all the tape recorders, and they had played him back how his voice is on the tape recorder. A very novel invention, he thought, very, very novel type of invention. Then all of a sudden, the mantra, Gayatri mantra, it can come to tape, and it can go to your disciples. So he was a little thoughtful about that. And then they said, Prabhupada, our Prabhupada, he also had a tape for his disciples. Then Sridhar Maharaj said, Swami Maharaj done? He called him Swami Maharaj. Swami Maharaj has tape, Gayatri tape for initiation? Then they said, yes. He said, then I must also do that as parampara. Then he told, the will of the Vaishnava is behind everything. If it is done by the will of the Vaishnava, the connection is there. If it is against the will of the Vaishnava, if you steal that tape and you listen to that tape, you're not connected. Even you heard him. The will, the good will of the Vaishnava must be there. Not the physical proximity. The good will must be there. Then, years later after that, it was actually after the time of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, many devotees in Western countries, they came to another of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, Puri Goswami Maharaj. And a similar kind of phenomena developed. People would go back to their countries, and after a while, there would come the necessity of second initiation, but they couldn't come to India. So, again, the same thing was suggested. A tape could be made. A tape could be made. And he was approaching about 96 years of age at that time. And he was, a tape can be made. We're going to make a tape of the Gayatri Mantra, which has been passed down from the beginning of time to now, from student to the guru to student, disciple, and so forth, and it's going to go on a machine. Right? Then they told, yes, Sridhar Maharaj and Swami Maharaj, they both had tapes. Basically, he uttered the same thing. Oh, they had tape, Gayatri tape, this is parampara. And he made a tape. I have all three of those tapes. So, again, the will of the Vaishnava is there. It is not dependent on a machine or a paper or any such thing. Actually, when I received a sannyas, I received Sannyas Mantra on a piece of paper. something in the course of the day, I didn't go to Srila Prabhupada's room and he didn't tell me the mantra. I don't know that he told anybody the mantra. We all got it on a piece of paper. It's a special mantra that sannyasis get. It is the Raga Marg mantra of our sampradaya. It is also called the Gopi Bhav mantra of our sampradaya. But he didn't speak it to anyone, or he didn't say anything about it, but we all got it. Years later, there was an argument with some devotees, and they were Gaudiya Math devotees, and they were telling, oh, you didn't hear mantra from Prabhupada. You took sannyas from him, but you didn't hear mantra from him. Oh, better you hear from Sridhara Maharaj. If you hear mantra from him, that is better. And I said, I have no complaint about that. Anything I hear from Sridhara Maharaj, I take that as Prabhupada's blessing. But I seem to trace in you some doubt that I'm insufficiently connected by what my Guru Maharaj gave me. And I cannot admit to that. I don't admit to that. It's true I didn't hear it from him. But I feel it, that all the will of Prabhupada was there for success in my chanting of this mantra. And I have certainly tried my best to serve him, and I would hate to think that he had not a drop of mercy for me. So I argued, not that arguing that I could hear this mantra from another Venerable Vaishnava, but I traced in this person something I didn't like. So we were arguing. Then a much older sannyasi entered the room. We were arguing. So generally, if peers are arguing, you take it to some senior person. That's how you solve arguments. You see, when kids are arguing, they go to the parents. When parents are arguing, they go to the grandparents. When grandparents are arguing, go see Maharaj. You know, you go somewhere where you have faith and resolve your problem, whatever it is. Even in that world, go to the judge. He'll tell you. The judge will say, you see, some judge, some authority. So I said, well, I can't, but I realized I could be arguing again. Because if it didn't set too right with me, given my nature, I might be arguing even with that little higher Vaishnava, actually. He was a cousin, spiritual cousin. So the thing was explained. Maharaj didn't hear the mantra directly. We both kind of said what we had to say. Then he said, and then I said, I have the mantra that Keshav Maharaj gave Prabhupada. I have that piece of paper. And Prabhupada wrote that on a piece of paper. And Keshav Maharaj wrote that on paper and he gave that to Prabhupada. Then Govinda Maharaj said, yes, when Keshav Maharaj took sannyas from Sridhar Maharaj, he also wrote that on paper and gave that to him. And then he said, and when Guru Maharaj took sannyas from Bhakti Siddhanta, there was a big crowd of people around. So he wrote the mantra on paper and gave him. So that is our parampara. So, but generally, we go for it is mentioned hearing. One should hear the mantra. It's even said right ear or left ear, I forget. Sometimes I'm asked, did you hear it in the right ear? I say, I heard it with both ears. Just as big as I could hear it, elephantine ears. I want to hear. And what are these little holes? How much I'll hear? I'll take from both. That way surely I got it right. You see, whichever one you're supposed to hear it from. But that is like a cultural dressing. Right ear, left ear, there's some thing there. What must be there is the will of the Vaishnava and the cooperation of the jiva. The disciple must cooperate with his will. He must cooperate as a recipient of his will. If that is there, then the form may be transcended in so many ways. It may not be in that first-class order as some people think it should be, but it will be more real than even what we call dead mantras passed on in so-called disciplic successions directly. Now, again, it is sometimes said that when you receive this mantra, the guru should explain to you your Nitya Swarup. This is the next level that is being established. And if that's true, even the person that's saying this doesn't have his Nitya Swarup. Because no disciple of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Srila Bhakti Siddhanta ever gave second initiation to anyone from then till now in any other way than you saw it in the time of Srila Prabhupada. The mantra was written on a paper. The student was brought into the room and showed how to count, and Prabhupada repeated the mantra, Om, Bhur, Bhuva, Swa, like this. Most of us were sitting there going, ugh. So nervous, couldn't even understand what he was saying. Most devotees that went in the room to hear the mantra from Prabhupada were so nervous, they couldn't even... I remember Vipramukhi Swami told me, he was just going up and down one finger. At a point, Prabhupada said, what's wrong with this man? Well, it's because it's so nervous. Now, those who were around Prabhupada a lot became very, 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 very easy and relaxed in their dealings with him. But those of us who were serving from a distance, suddenly we were called right to the spot. It was just like every nerve dislocated inside. And mostly we presented ourselves as grand fools. Now, what is wrong with this man? He said. And I've talked to so many devotees, they couldn't catch a thing. So, and those that even caught it, he never told what is your Nitya Swarup. Although, if you look in the Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 9th chapter, 33rd verse, 3, 9, 33, the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the Swarup of the living entity is Dasiras. This is given by Mahaprabhu. Our eternal Swarup is that of servant of Krishna. Is there any disciple of Srila Prabhupada who didn't get that message? Man, woman, or child that didn't get that message? That means everyone was given their Swarup. This other thing which is being talked about, that is not your Swarup. You are dreaming. You are dreaming. Huh? Recently, somebody was asked, Mother Jagadatri, who lives in Hawaii, mother of Raghunath, the grown-up Gurukul boy. She asked, how do I know when my devotion is real bhakti? Did I say this yesterday? No. How do I know when my devotion is real bhakti? The answer was, when you can take the betel nut from Radharani's mouth and put it into Krishna's mouth, then you'll know that your devotion is real bhakti. That was the answer. And my purport of that is, if that happened, excuse me? No. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I talked too fast. The Jagadatri asked this question. You got the question? How do I know?
She asked who and who answered?
A young sannyasi answered. He might have visited this place, I heard one time. A young sannyasi answered. When you can place the betel nut from Radharani's mouth to Krishna's mouth, then you'll know that your devotion is real bhakti. Do you follow? My purport of that is, if that happens, know for sure you're either dead or dreaming. And it's probably the latter. You are simply dreaming. And that is no proof of devotion. No proof of devotion whatsoever. Mahaprabhu has shown us the proof of devotion. The proof of devotion, the proof of bhakti, the proof of love is the more you have of it, the least you feel you have any of it. But yet you are addicted to it to the point of madness. There is no other proof. You follow? Yeah. That's our parampara. We're not in the illusion of Rasvichar Leela. We are not gopi haters by far. Krishna's only business is with gopis. His only business, not yours. Your only business is with the lotus feet of your guru. Rupa Goswami, he is Rupa Manjari, Sri Rupa Manjari Pada. Her lotus feet are the supreme wealth of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Yet we must deal with her as she appeared as Rupa Goswami. We must follow in his footsteps as Rupa Goswami, as Rupa Nugas. We are the followers of Sri Rupa, of Sri Rupa Goswami. And we are following in Dasi Ras. Rupa Goswami was appointed the head of our Sampradaya. In this world, Rupa Goswami is the head of the Sampradaya. That Prabhupada established ISKCON does not put him at the head of the Sampradaya. He's the founder, Acharya, the head of ISKCON. As one Gaudiya sannyasi said, everybody in Gaudiya Mutt eats the prasadam of Swami Maharaj. He has opened the door. He has gone around the world. He has taken the holy name in every nook and cranny of the world. And back and through India and through Bengal. There is no one who is not living by his mercy. Everyone is eating his prasad. Nonetheless, Rupa Goswami is the head of our Sampradaya. And Prabhupada is the first to admit that and to correct you on that if you think otherwise. When he came to America, he came with the message, we are Rupa Nugas, the followers of Sri Rupa. That is not based on anything in this world. That is based on eternal service in the spiritual world. Rupa Goswami, as Rupa Manjari, heads the group of servitors of which you are now enlisted. In the group of servitors. Where you'll go? Vaikuntha? You're having a prayer in Vaikuntha. No one will know who you are if you show up there. What is your business here? Huh? You will go past Vaikuntha. You are not for that place. It's like showing up at the army base when you already signed up for the Coast Guard. What are you doing here? You're in the wrong office. You'll be moved on. No hope for Vaikuntha. When you enter a particular sampradaya, you basically sign up for an eternal service. And you receive that under your leaders, your parampara. They're all of that plane. So it is a great loss if on the way to that supreme destination we deviate to something else, be it mystic power or even Vaikuntha. That is considered a great loss. That is considered fallen. Once you have signed up for the highest plane of divinity, to even settle for Vaikuntha, that is considered a fall down. Vaikuntha is a fall down for a Gaudiya. Always fixed on the highest goal. And how to achieve that? Through dasya ras, servitorship. Now, this Rupa Goswami, when he came to Mahāprabhu, he offered obeisances at a great distance. That's the first instruction right there. He did not run and jump and try to grab the feet of Mahāprabhu. Now, it'd be hard to think in your mind what you would actually do if you saw Mahāprabhu. What you would actually do. You couldn't really think it even, It's impossible. But what did he do? He offered obeisances from a distance. And he uttered, Namo Mahabharanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. Then he was called close. Mahāprabhu embraced him. But he offered obeisances. No, we are very fallen. The same with Sanatan. He was drawn to Mahāprabhu, but he drew back. I am very fallen. I am an unclean person. I am unfit. This happened many times in their dealing with Mahāprabhu. They did not live in Gambhira right next to him. They lived in another place, away, with Haridas Thakur. We are fallen. We have mixed with the lower caste. We are out from Brahmanism. Just the sight of us is sinful. This was their self-reflection on themselves. They're actually Gopi people from Braj, but they're not saying, actually, Mahāprabhu, you know who I am, and I know who I am, and I'm sitting here remembering who I am. I'm a Gopi of Braj. They are the Gopis of Braj. Mahāprabhu knew who they were. That's not how they saw themselves. They are performing Acharya Leela. They are performing Leela for the benefit of all mankind. And they thought of themselves in a very lowly and unqualified position. And they aspired always for the service of Mahāprabhu, Dasiras. Then they served in Vrindavan. They were always far away. Service in separation, Vipralamba. They were rarely in the personal company of Mahāprabhu. Then, one year at Ratha Yatra, Mahāprabhu began singing poetry in front of Lord Jagannath. He was singing poetry by Bharat Muni. Yes. Something is called Nata Shastras, a love poetry between a boy and a girl. This Shastra is all about mundane love. Love between lovers and beloved. And he's singing the Sanskrit poetries to Lord Jagannath. He's uttering these poems of Bharat Muni from the Nata Shastras. What he uttered is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. You can read it. And it tells you where it's from. And nobody can understand what Mahāprabhu is doing. He's weeping and he's crying in front of Lord Jagannath and he's singing these seemingly mundane poetries. No devotees could understand. Many pure devotees were there. Many pure devotees were there. Nityananda Prabhu was there. He's Balaram. Gadadhar, many. Rai Ramananda, he is also there. What is this? Ramananda Roy is Vishaka. Swarup Damodar is Lalita. They're also there. What is Mahaprabhu? Actually, it is said Swarup Damodar, Lalita. He understood what is Mahaprabhu's mood. He is in the mood of Radharani, and what he's saying, he understood. Nobody else, even pure devotees. You understand? Even pure devotees and confidential devotees of the Supreme Lord, they did not know what he's saying. Then Rupa Goswami, he observed this, and he understood what is the heart of Mahaprabhu. And when going after Ratha Yatra to his home, Rupa Goswami wrote a parallel verse, and he revealed what is the meaning of what Mahaprabhu was saying. Apparently, simple love poetry is what he's speaking. He revealed that. That is also there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He revealed what is Radharani speaking to Krishna at Kurukshetra. And he wrote a parallel verse. After writing it on a palm leaf, he put it on the roof of his house. He went for the ocean, sea bath. Mahaprabhu came at that time. He saw the tip of this leaf. Oh, Rupa Goswami, he has written something, and he pulled it down. And he saw this, and he was shocked. It is just a verse written, describing Radharani speaking to Krishna at Kurukshetra. Then Mahaprabhu was really taken by that. Suddenly Rupa Goswami came back. Then Mahaprabhu told, "You have written this?" "Oh, yes, my Lord, I have written this." Slapped his face. "You have revealed my heart." But he was very happy. You read Prabhupada's purport. Outwardly he gave a slap, but he was fully satisfied with Rupa Goswami. So, our interest in this is from the plane of service, and from this feeling of this and service. The only problem is we sometimes go about it in a mindless way, forgetting what we're actually involved in, and then a challenge comes. Our heart tells us, no, what I'm doing is right. But then we are just bombarded with, the types of weapons that we haven't heard about before. As I said to the devotees in Vancouver, you will either learn in these days the raga aspect of our movement and add that to the vision of the simple things you've done for your life, or they will crush you into the mud. They're unrelenting and uncompromising. Yet, actually, they are very shallow. They are not very deep. If you listen, they don't give the deep purport of anything. They only give the lila. Very, very external. The high show, but no substance. No substance within. So, Rupa Goswami was then handpicked by Mahaprabhu, and he was placed at the head of the Sampradaya. And he was called Prabhupada, Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. But Mahaprabhu himself is known as Prabhupada in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I believe 2 verses. Mahaprabhu is called Prabhupada. So the first Prabhupada is Mahaprabhu. In that part of the world, Prabhupada means the father. It means the father. So although Mahaprabhu was young, he was like the father figure for the devotee. It means not just father, it means most affectionate guardian, and just all those things, the master, the guardian, the guru, our Lord. Prabhupada means all of those things. And who knew his heart, who knew the heart of Prabhupada, who knew the heart of Prabhupada, then he became known as Prabhupada, Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. And later, when the line of Rupa Goswami had almost vanished from the earth, when the Sahajiya Paramparas had established themselves everywhere, to the point that Chaitanya Charitamrita didn't even exist anymore, and the standards of Gaudiya Vaishnavism were the standards of womanizers and beggars and drunkards, at that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, they re-established the mission of Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, and he became known as Prabhupada. And in later years, our Guru Maharaj, our Srila Prabhupada, he took that mission out of India and he established that all over the world. And he became known as Prabhupada. This was a bit of a blow in India. Can you imagine if somebody set up camp nearby in a village and called themselves Prabhupada? How would you feel about it? You would grumble, and somebody said, well, it says right here, bona fide name of the Guru. Yeah, but you say, yeah, but you would go to a plane of feeling that's not supported in Shastra. According to Shastra, any bona fide Guru can be called Prabhupada. Nonetheless, we'll feel that some speciality of Prabhupada. And there was a tendency, there were so many pods. I don't know, maybe there's still many pods. There are many pods. And, but we'll keep that sacred. But there's not Shastra that says you just keep that sacred. That is only a feeling of the devotees which they want to maintain. But for us, he became Prabhupada. And this was a big noise in many many ears in India. And at one particular point, a complaint was brought to Srila Sridhara Maharaj about Swami Maharaj is calling himself Prabhupada. And Sridhar Maharaj said, we have this on record, on recording. He told him, I find no fault with this. No fault there. Why he cannot be called Prabhupada? He has established our Guru Maharaj's movement all over the world. He was fully in support of that. No objection there. And not that he was the only one. There are others, people we've never heard of. They had no complaint either. Higher thinking devotees don't have complaint. They don't share in the complaints of the lower thinking devotees. You see. They don't share in the same complaint. Higher thinking devotees don't run with the mob. And there are always higher thinking devotees. Maybe we've never known them. Maybe you pass them, you don't even know who they are. Nirupati Vaishnavas. You don't know. And at a calling, they may come out of their hiding, and then you may understand they're a great Vaishnava, or they may not. They may be near and dear to Krishna. And they're not taken out in any recognizable quarter. It's called Nirupati Vaishnava. You wouldn't have understood who's Sanatan Goswami for the life of you. Bamsidas Babaji, you'd have probably chased with a broom. Get this guy out of here. He didn't even take a bath regularly. You see. But if the hippies get a hold of that, then they'll stop bathing and say, hey, Bamsidas didn't take a bath either. Yes, but he didn't sleep and he didn't eat either. So not just stinking was the standard. So you're avadut. You don't take bath. How about sleep? When the prasadam's there, you eat 4 times as much as everybody else. This is your avadut. So, but external symptoms, we may not recognize him. He's in the hidden section, you see. Then the Supreme Lord will call upon a devotee to do something wonderful. We feel Srila Prabhupada was called from the most unassuming position. As a householder, suddenly his world just dissolved. It just dissolved. Everything dissolved around him. And he found himself a white-clad mendicant, alone, living amongst his god brothers, trying to continue what his Guru Maharaj had given him. Publishing, helping with publishing. You know that Prabhupada's name became Bhaktisiddhanta Das? You know that? It's there in the Lilamrita. There's one little paragraph that just mentions it in Satsvarup Maharaj's Lilamrita. There's a big story behind that. But it was around I actually haven't pinned it down to the date. It's in the early 40s. It could have been pre-1943, or maybe it comes a little after. I'm a little confused about the date. I've just never tried to pin it down. But I have Prabhupada's signature, A.C. Bhaktisiddhanta Das Adhikari. And it's in the Bhaktivedanta archives. I just have a Xerox copy of it. It's on the back of the League of Devotees registration papers from Jhansi that he registered in Lucknow in 1953. It says, Abhaicharan Day, alias A.C. Bhaktisiddhanta Das Adhikari. So this name, Bhaktisiddhanta Das, was given to him by a godbrother whom none of us have ever met. His name was Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj. He was from the actual family home of Nityananda Prabhu. He was a disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He was the second devotee to go to the Western world. And he was the one who was in England, a second attempt to establish preaching in England in 1936 when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta left the world. His name is known to all the stalwarts of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And Srila Prabhupada used to write for his magazine. He wrote 23 articles which have never been translated or shown to the world. 23 articles in Bengali. And I've seen them, and at the end of each article is his name in English. Abhay Babu, or Abhay Charan Day. Not even his initiated name, Abhay Charan Aravinda, just Abhay Charan Day. And so Saranga Maharaj, he wanted to confer upon Srila Prabhupada a title of distinction and dignity befitting a senior disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, a powerful preacher. Still, white-dressed man, not a sannyasi, just a white-dressed person in the stage of pre-renunciation, so to speak. The material world had just dissolved, and he was there. So he gave him the title Bhaktisiddhanta Das. Prabhupada writes in several letters and places, he was given this name by the Vaishnavas. That particular Vaishnava amongst the Vaishnavas, that was Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj. But then, as the name was used about, a little bit of a buzz came up that it is the name of our guru. And Bhaktisiddhanta never gave the name of Bhakti Vinod to anyone. So it is the name of our guru. So possibly another name would be better. So then it was agreed upon by everyone that everyone included Saranga Maharaj, Srila Sridhara Maharaj, Srila Madhava Maharaj, Kesha Maharaj, and a few others. That was the circle of Prabhupada's friends and associates. And they also agreed, yes, actually our Guru Maharaj's name should be kept special. So, Bhakti Siddhanta, the Siddhanta of Bhakti. So then Srila Sridhara Maharaj recommended Vedanta, Bhakti Vedanta. Vedanta and Siddhanta are synonymous. So, if his name goes to Bhakti Vedanta, it is in keeping with the inspiration. Now this was the point. The inspiration that Saranga Maharaj felt towards him in affectionate relationship as a god brother, to confer this upon him. Prabhupada received it as a blessing of his guru, through a god brother, through the Vaishnavas. So rather than just change it to like, it has no meaning of Bhakti Siddhanta, just something else, Bhakti something. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj suggested Bhakti Vedanta. So then he became known as Bhakti Vedanta Prabhu. What happened in that assembly must have been so impressive, at least in the eyes of Keshav Maharaj. He then noted that he will give all his sannyasis in the future the name Bhakti Vedanta. And therefore, later on, when Prabhupada took sannyas, his name didn't change. He didn't become Bhakti Vedanta. He remained Bhakti Vedanta. You know that picture? Keshav Maharaj is sitting in a chair, and Prabhupada is on this side, and there's another gentleman here. That gentleman here is Bhakti Vedanta Muni. And Prabhupada is Bhakti Vedanta Swami. One is a Muni Maharaj, one is a Swami Maharaj. There are many types of Maharajas in our paramparas. Puri Maharaj, Sridhar Maharaj, Madhava Maharaj, Keshav Maharaj, Swami Maharaj, Goswami Maharaj. These are names from 108 names that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta selected for sannyasis, and they will each have a Bhakti Siddhanta, Vedanta, Saranga, a 3-syllable word will be attached. And it should have something to do with their line, their lineage, their character and quality, something like that. So, but Keshav Maharaj was so impressed by how, this wasn't just, well, look, Abhay Babu got the wrong name, let's just, okay, anybody got a good name? Well, how about Bhakti Vedanta? Okay, let's run with that. Okay, you're Bhakti Vedanta. Okay, next. No, it was a deep Sangha of Vaishnavas, great Vaishnavas. I mean, everyone looks upon themselves, and they looked upon themselves as fallen souls, but I don't think so. I don't think they were a fallen assembly. My opinion of them, they were very elevated. Even their fallen birth was very elevated compared to where I was born. I don't know about any of you, but I was somewhere roaming the streets of Haight Street at the time. So they were very elevated Vaishnavas, and in their elevated association, this name came out, Bhakti Vedanta. Keshav Maharaj was notably impressed by that. To this day, it's even in his will. All the sannyasis of his parampara must be named Bhakti Vedanta. But the first Bhakti Vedanta in modern times was our Srila Prabhupada. So that's something how Prabhupada's name came in that assembly. So, yes.
Can you sometime talk about Paramahansa Sahajiya?
Paramahansa Sahajiya. Okay. Well, that got your ear, right?
I thought it would be beneficial if you just gave a real brief explanation of the history of Gaudiya Math, because sometimes...
Oh, yeah, we'll get around. Yeah, okay.
People think Gaudiya Math is just one organization.
No, it's... every temple you saw is a different organization over there. There's a Mother Mutt. That was established by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And then they had their fratricidal war, and that divided. Srila Prabhupada mentions, just for the record, there were two parties. They fought in the court. Both became, is it Asara? Usara. Asara. Both became Asara. Asara means useless. Read close to what he says. There were 3 parties. 2 parties fought in the court. The third party carried on the mission of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And that wasn't just him alone. That was himself and the senior godbrothers of himself with whom he chose to associate with for many, many years. There was a third party. You'll find it mentioned in the Lilamrita. 2 parties fought and became useless. A third party went on, separated from this fighting, left everything. They said when Keshav Maharaj left, he didn't have paisa to buy a cup of yogurt. About 10 or 15 brahmacharis left with him. They had no place to sleep and they had nothing to eat. So they were sleeping on the, not the Howrah station platform, but a station platform on the outskirts of Calcutta. And their first day. And with great determination and dignity, they stepped out of a chaotic crumbling of their Guru Maharaj's mission with a lump in their throat, probably the size of a pumpkin. And then there were some men going to follow Keshav Maharaj. He wasn't even a Keshav Maharaj. What was his name? Vinod Brahmachari or something? Keshav Maharaj? I forget. Vinod Bihari Brahmachari, in white dress Brahmachari. Because he was a manager. But when he left, not a paisa did he take from the kitty, from the till. And from that temple, Bagh Bazaar, devotees left for him. The first night, no puri sabji before rest, no hot milk. And the next morning, no breakfast. And that afternoon, no lunch either. They had not even food to feed their hungry faces. And young brahmacharis, immediately hunger. You don't want to put hunger in a Bengali stomach, I'm telling you. That can cause horrific problems. They are well-fed brahmacharis. So 3 meals already skipped. And they were taking some afternoon rest on a train station. And a bird flew by, a crow. If you've been to Calcutta, crows are quite aggressive. They'll steal your bar of soap right off your bathroom windowsill. I've had them steal soap right out of my hand. Raising my hand to put the soap on a ledge in a shower, and a crow come in and peck it right out of my hand. So some crow had stolen some lady's purse, which was a little cloth with some coins, rupee coins, silver coins in those days, tied in a little thing. How ladies in India tie their change and money in a little tied purse. Some crow had stolen that and was flying away with it and dropped it. And Keshav Maharaj was laying there asleep, and it goes tink. And he opened up, and there's this. He looks around, he sits up. There's nobody there. There's a little bundle of coins. And then they were able to manage some prasadam, something to eat, the devotees. So from that, like, grassroots, humble beginning, not only they all left on a single day, actually. The whole thing held, and it's not an adjustment of the story to make it sound right, but everything held together until Srila Sridhar Maharaj threw in the towel. When he threw in the towel, he went, means it's an expression, he quit. It got to a point, he went into his room, he got his dhoti, his danda, his water pot, and his Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he didn't say a word to anybody. And he left the ashram, and he vanished. He was gone and vanished for over a year. The word spread by evening. Sridhar Maharaj is gone. That was it. The next day it was catastrophic. Madha Maharaj, Keshav Maharaj, Saranga Maharaj, they all just bifurcated. They all left. It became intolerable. They all left, but they did not fight amongst one another. And they joined at different times through the years, actually, and did things in cooperative spirit. And so they did not become asara, actually. I mean, we brought Western money to India. They didn't. And they established, overall, I guess there's close to 100 mutts between them. I have seen their Harinam parties, 5,000 people. All right, they're not New Yorkers, they're not from Vancouver, they're not from London and Paris. Does that make us better than them? Because we're born in a place where there's not a drop of culture, but there's plenty of money. Does that make us better? Not really. They're also Vaishnava, they're also doing the Harinam. So they had success also. It wasn't as we did think that they didn't do anything. No, actually they did many things. and they continue to do. So there was a breakup of the Gaudiya Math, and it came about very strongly. I don't know the exact year. And when it did, also Prabhupada left his affiliation with the central Math, and he had a house in Sitakanta Banerjee Lane, and it was a household family house, and it had a separate division. If you ever go there, there's number 6 and number 7. Number 7 is just a flat level, like a sub-basement level building, and number 6 is this quaint little narrow 2-story with little balconies. And right now, yeah. So Prabhupada, he had on lease 6 and 7. So he subleased number 7 to Srila Sridhara Maharaj, who then opened a preaching center. This was after he was gone for a year. He resurfaced, and Srila Prabhupada invited him into his home, and he established a preaching center there, and there was a connecting doorway. And in 1947, during the Hindu-Muslim riots, they were fortified inside Prabhupada's house. It was Prabhupada and his family, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj and 3 or 4 brahmacharis. And just a little side note to tell you something about how Prabhupada was. Prabhupada took up the command of defend the home, defend the house, bolt the doors. There were horrific riots going on. I mean, you don't want to know. When India loses it, it just gets bad. Heads being chopped and just horrible massacre. So houses were being bolted from the inside, and every night it would happen. Sitakanda Banerjee Lane is a little narrow street off of a street that connects to a park and a bigger road. I forget, I don't know the name of the place. But so Srila Prabhupada had his chemistry business also, his pharmaceuticals going on at the time. And he had a room just above the main entrance to the house. He had a pharmaceutical room. And so he had 2 brahmacharis sleeping in that room. And during the riots, he came and he told them, he lined up some bottles along the windowsill. And he told them, if the enemy comes on the door, means if they come to break the door, pour these bottles on their head from above. It was hydrochloric acid. Yeah. So one day that devotee, who was a very old man now, who was the boy whom Prabhupada told this to, he was asking me about temple defense, because there are gundas and so many things. And I said, well, in the Western countries, many of the Western countries, the devotees have guns. And that's their temple or home defense. But probably, and then he said, can you bring me a gun? I said, no, Maharaj, I cannot bring you a gun. No gun. Now what I'm to do? I said, well, there are many ways to defend a temple. You ever hear of a baseball bat? So I was telling him some of the home defense mechanisms. Then I told him about the acid bombs. You take balloons and you fill them up with hydrochloric acid and you tie them off and you just keep them stocked. If a murderous gang of bandits breaks your door and comes in to massacre you, you will just let him have it in the face with the acid bombs. And that'll give him something to do while you run. He said, Maharaj, you are parampara. I said, how am I parampara? He said, your Guru Maharaj is also acid bomb man. I said, what? Acid bomb man? What is acid bomb man? Then he told me the story. Prabhupada said, pour the acid on him. This is parampara. Well, that is our parampara lecture of the day. So, Prabhupada did not talk much about his past experiences. If you measure a gentleman, a man or a lady, by how much they talk of their guru, if that's the measure of how much a Prabhupada man they are, then I guess Prabhupada wasn't a very big Prabhupada man, because there are only 3 recorded lectures where he says anything at length about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And there are 1,000 other lectures he practically doesn't mention them. And if you little mention, there's only or maybe it's only 2 tapes where he actually speaks just about his Guru Maharaj for like a half an hour. By that same measure, we would say, well, Maharaj doesn't tell much about Prabhupada. Must not be a Prabhupada man. Well, that's not the measure of a Prabhupada man, that he just tells the stories. In fact, it may come a time when you can't tell the stories anymore. Even the great storytellers of the Prabhupada Leela, because it will just put such a lump in your throat You can't get the story out anymore. Then you're a real Prabhupada man. So maybe stopping telling the stories will be the mark of a Prabhupada man. And maybe the telling the stories may be the mark of a wannabe. It's not a good mark. How many stories we tell about our guru is the mark. I have a saying, it has come to this: if I come to your door in the middle of the night and I knock, and you go, Haribol, who's there? I go, Jai, glories to Prabhupada. You just open the door. Any temple, just bang the door at 2 in the morning. Who's there? Jai, glories to Prabhupada. Just open the door. Big problem. You come to my door and you shout, Jai, glories to Prabhupada. I go, what the hell are you doing out there? It's 2 in the morning. Who are you? What do you want? Jai, glories to Śrīla Maharaja. Jais to so many. Who are you? What are you doing here? What do you want? Don't be so swayed just because someone says, Prabhupada, my bosom friend, my Priya Bandhu. Don't be swayed by storytelling. I have so many letters from Prabhupada. So does the tax department. He also wrote them many letters. Don't be swayed by numbers. How many? All these sentimental things. We have to look deeper into the subject matter. And then we'll know, if some connection of our Guru Maharaj is there. It may also be partial. It may not be total. It's very easy to come and sit in front of somebody and say, Prabhupada wanted me to come here and tell you this. It's very easy to say that. Anyone can say. But that is not the standard of our judgment. We have to know the substance of what we are about and the approach to that. We have to know that so thoroughly that even if the guise and so many things don't resemble the form that we've seen previously, nonetheless, we will recognize it as friendly. The form may be different. When Krishna came into the universe as Balakrishna, holding butter in one hand and some fruit in the other, and running and eating, and Lord Brahma said, who is this? He told Krishna later, if you would have come as Narayan in your standard way, easily we would have recognized you, but you've come in such an uncommon way, it must be excused that we can't recognize you. You see. So actually that is something rare. Krishna only comes in the universe once in a day of Brahma. Similarly, Mahāprabhu, do you know this particular point? Mahāprabhu only comes once in a day of Brahma. He does not come every Kali Yuga. There is an avatar that comes every Kali Yuga, but he only gives Yuga Dharma, no Prema Dharma. Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, Nahi Anya. Mahaprabhu is Rasaraj, Mahabhav. These two combined into one divine entity once in a day of Brahma. Krishna of Vrindavan, Braj Kishore, Nanda Nandana, once in a day of Brahma. Yasoda Nandana, once in a day of Brahma. In every Dwapara Yuga, there is a Vaikuntha Krishna. He is sometimes called the Kesha Avatar. He comes and shows pastimes up to Dwarka, not Vrindavan. Like in Mahabharata, where does Krishna come from? There's no talk about Vrindavan in Mahabharata. He simply just shows up in Mahabharata at a time. His Vrindavan Leela is not discussed. It is only discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. So like that, Dwarka. He does not show us his Vrindavan Leela, but once in a day of Brahma. And Mahaprabhu as Radha and Krishna, once in a day of Brahma. It is rare, rare, and rare. There are something like 1,108 Kali Yugas in a day of Brahma. And no, the day of Brahma, well, I forget the calculations. 72 Yuga cycles in every Manu, 14 Manus in a day. Yeah, it's like that. It's every 1,108 Kali Yugas, Mahaprabhu comes as Radha Krishna. After every 1,108 Dwapara Yugas, Krishna comes Vrindavan Krishna. What is given is categorically different. Liberation, mukti, and devotion in awe and reverence up to Vaikuntha, that is given in Dwapara Yuga and in Kali Yuga, all others. But in the one Dwapara Yuga and one Kali Yuga, something special is given. Very special.
Isn't it true that Lord Chaitanya
sometimes doesn't come once in a day, Brahma? I think Srila Prabhupada says in one of the purports in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that although Krishna comes every Dvapara Yuga, one day of Brahma, that sometimes Lord Chaitanya doesn't.
Well, you'd have to, sometimes on the remembering platform, if you look at in the evening or something and see, but as per, I've heard this many times, once in a day of Brahma. There is a little book here that we published. Unfortunately, it's almost out of print. It's called In Search of the Ultimate Goal of Life. Srila Prabhupada explains that point in that book. It's an essay that he wrote in 1959. And it is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita also. And then it is there in many works of other contributors to the biography of Mahāprabhu, like Lochandas Thakur in Chaitanya Mangala and so forth. Probably also Chaitanya Bhagavat.
So it means also his era, his golden age of 10,000 years is a very rare window of opportunity in the whole cycle of things. Yeah?
Yes.
Just once in every 4 billion years or something.
That actually begins with Ramanujacharya. If you look at the Bhavishva Purana, I know Bhavishva Purana, devotees are squeezing that out to say that Prabhupada marks the beginning of the Golden Age. This is one section, but this is a little bit too what's called zealous enthusiasm. We cannot be so enthusiastic that we begin to concoct things. The Bhavishva Purana says that first, the Golden Age begins when the devotees appear and they have Vishnu mantra, and I believe it mentions tilak. But for sure, as I remember the verse, it mentions Vishnu mantra. We don't have Vishnu mantra. Who has Vishnu mantra? That's Ramanuja. Ramanuja has Vishnu mantra. Then the next wave appears. It's like first the dawn, then the sun rises. The next wave is, and two characteristics of that wave are given. Nam Bhajan and Bhagavat Purana. Who's Nam Bhajan and Bhagavat Purana? That's Mahaprabhu's cult. Bhagavatam and Nama. The name and the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavat culture. That's Mahaprabhu. So that's like the sun is fully risen. Then that is carried, and there is a 10,000 year period. And then it says in Bhavishva Purana that after that, darkness of Kali Yuga slowly comes and covers everything. And no God consciousness. Everything lost. Lost means if it exists, it's just hidden away. It is not available anymore. It exists in some hidden underground way. It may go on and survive to the next yuga, but it is no longer available. It is then the age of darkness. So, in relation to parampara, you have seen in Bhagavad Gita, there's parampara list back to Krishna. But if you try to follow that and get everybody in that chain to hold hands, whoops, got about a 200-year gap here. You have another gap here. There's some problematic areas. 32 people make it all the way back to the beginning of the universe. It's a tough stretch. So there is an apparent break. However, if you see someone living and you go somewhere and you say, "Who is your father and who is your mother?" And they go, "I don't know." Do you pronounce them dead? Well, they obviously had one. How are they living? They didn't have a father and mother. How are they living? Right? So if the conception is living and you don't know who is the parampara of the guru, well, there obviously was one, but it can't be mentioned. There's a gap. The gap doesn't mean there was nobody there. It means the whole thing went underground at some time, and it's not visible. And who those Vaishnavas were, we don't know. And one example, now when we say this, people go, "Oh, that's a catchy little answer." Well, we're not arguing this in New York. We're arguing this in Navadvip Dham. This is where the real arguments take place about our parampara. In Navadvip, not in South India or anywhere. In Navadvip is the real place where the first arguments take place. And then we bring the name of Bamsidas Babaji, who was known in the last century up to, I think he lived in 1947. He was known as a Paramahansa Avadut. You'll find his mention in the biographies of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Here and there, in the memoirs of different devotees of the time, you will find his mention. His name is on the Hare Krishna calendar. It is there. Bamsidas Babaji, disappearance day. I think it's next month, in July. It usually comes in Julan, if I'm not mistaken. But who he is? Just a name there. He was recognized Paramahansa Avadut, not just by our Sampradaya, by all of Navadvip. Every opposer to Gaudiya recognized him as a Paramahansa Avadut. Nobody knows who his guru was. But he obviously had one. Or he could not have been a Paramahansa Avadut. This does not happen independent of Parampara. So in those places where there are gaps, that is like a river going underground. In the neighborhood where I grew up, in the Appalachian Mountains in Maryland, we had a creek. We called it a creek. It was a small river. And it used to run to the base of the mountain and disappear. It used to it'd just go, and it was gone. It would disappear. And it would come out on the other side of that mountain. It was a tourist thing. On the other side, it was real nice because there was a drop and there was a waterfall. But it would go under the mountain, out of sight. Where did it go? So we tried. Where did it go? Where did it go? When you go to the source of the Kaveri River, which is one of the 7 holy rivers of India, that's called Talakaveri. There's the origin, and the river starts down and it disappears. It goes down. It came out of a hole in the ground. It begins, and it goes down and then it disappears. And you go down half a mountain, and there's nothing there. And all of a sudden, here she comes. And then takes off down and across India. Sometimes underground. There are tremendous rivers underground. So it's not an inappropriate example to say sometimes the parampara goes underground. And in the names, the situation, it is lost. But then the real living substance of that parampara lives at some point and is recognized. Then the link is made from the last recognized link to the newly appeared recognized link. There must have been a continuum beneath that, unknown to us. Vaishnavism in the underground, in the unknown section, it is called. The unknown quarter, as they say in India, the unknown quarter. Nonetheless, even within that, the shiksha is the prominent aspect of the parampara and not the diksha. And there wasn't one of us that thought that our connection to Srila Prabhupada was independent of his shiksha. If you got his diksha, you didn't follow his shiksha, you were nowhere. You were nowhere. You were in Maya. The life of the diksha also depending on the shiksha. Shiksha is everything. The Bhagavat Parampara is the parampara of the Bhagavatam. We are the parampara of the Bhagavatam. We follow the conception of the Bhagavatam, and where we find that in the living saints, that becomes our parampara. But here also, slight difficulty comes. When you trace back the parampara, finally you get to Madhavinda Puri. And Madhavinda Puri, the next level back is Madhva Sampradaya, what's known as Madhva Sampradaya. And we don't share any common grounds with them, actually. The only common ground we actually share with the Madhva Sampradaya is they say that Krishna's body is Sat Chidananda. We also say that. Every word after that is an argument. They do not accept Radharani. They do not accept Goloka. They do not accept Krishna's Param Bhagavan. They only accept Narayan. Krishna is an avatar. It's a non-stop battle. The jivas are born in sattva, tamas, or raja, and they live in that eternally. Only sattva jivas can be liberated. It's an unending battle. There is nothing that we harmonize. Prema is not in their vocabulary. They are for mukti, not for bhakti, not for prema. We only join hands with them when fighting Mayavadis. And that's what Madhvacharya descended for. He is Bhima and Vayu. And he crushed Mayavad conception in his time. That's what he appeared to do. And everything after that, Mahaprabhu says, it is no value for bhakti ras, real devotion. So there, what's your parampara? I thought it was a thing. Well, it is traced, all of them, there, Madhva is also given recognition to Bhagavatam. He's given Bhagavatam. He has said that Bhagavatam is Brahma Vidya. It is the embodiment of transcendental knowledge. all these acharyas, they have made some comment about Bhagavatam. Some of them have commented on Bhagavatam, but they don't accept Krishna as the Ashraya Tattva. They accept Narayan as the Ashraya Tattva, the supreme shelter. And they accept the gopis only as residents of heaven, Gandharvas. And the fun gets thick because that's what the Bhagavatam says. It says the gopis, Yasoda, and other residents of Vrindavan, they are Gandharvas. And they say, you see, there is no Goloka. These people came. So that book is positioned, and it is written in such a way, only if you're in Parampara, only if you have the eyes to see, and only if it is revealed to you can you know the truth of the Bhagavatam. Radharani is not even mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. Her name appears nowhere. Then where did we get it? How does it come about? Oh, it is there to the vision of the Rasik. Those who have divine vision, who know rasa, who can see beneath the external, who have the keys to enter there. They see and they know. And those who don't have the qualification, they don't know. Even they say they know. Even if they say they're Rasik, they don't know. It is a secret. And it is not accessed through any other branch of the Parampara. But nonetheless, they give some recognition to Bhagavatam, but not full. But Ramanuja hardly touches it. But he's separate sampradaya. Then we go back, of course, Vyasadeva wrote the Bhagavatam. But Madhva Sampradaya says Vyasadev's guru is not Narada Muni. Bhagavatam says that Vyasa's guru is Narada Muni. You follow? Madhva Sampradaya says no, it isn't. Vyasadev's guru is Hamsa Avatar. So we don't take it from Vyas to Narada. We take it from Vyas to Narada because this is mentioned in Bhagavatam. If you ask them what about this, they'll say, oh, you fellows probably put that there. They don't accept that. They don't accept the bewilderment of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is bewildered. But it appears that Madhva accepted Brahma, the line of Brahma. But later, some deception in their parampara, some deviation. And they take it, nowadays, today, they take it to Hansa Avatar. And not to Brahma. We follow it to Brahma. And there we find Brahma tells, in Bhagavatam it is told, Brahma taught the Krishna taught Chatur Sloki to Brahma, Brahma taught Chatur Sloki to Narada, Narada taught Chatur Sloki to Vyas. Vyas taught Chatur Sloki to Sukadev. This thing which is occupying this much space of your bookshelf is not what Vyasadeva taught to Sukadev. What he taught to him was 4 verses. 4 verses. I've read those verses many times. If you ask me, how does Bhagavatam come out of these 4 verses? I'll just have to say, I don't know. It is a complete mystery of all mysteries. It is a wonder of all wonders. But I'm happy to be able to have the Bhagavatam. Then, after the Bhagavatam was spoken 2 times, then Vyasadeva wrote it down. He did not write a book, Sukha Uvacha, and speak about Sukadeva speaking it before he spoke it. Understand? He wrote the Bhagavatam. It says that he taught it to his son Sukadeva. So what did he teach him? Did he say, listen, I've written a book. In the future, this is what you'll say. Maharaj Parikshit will come. You will say, Sukha Uvacha means Sukadeva. You will say this. Parikshit will ask you this question. I wrote all these things. Please see it and learn Bhagavatam. He taught him 4 verses of Bhagavatam. Then, when it was all came down, Sukadeva came, it was known that Sukadeva will be the selected hero amongst all the rishis to speak the words of wisdom to Parikshit. Then Vyasadeva and Narada Muni, the guru and the param guru, they went there with great interest to see what these 4 verses produce. What's coming out of all of this, you see? And then they listened also. What is Bhagavatam? There's a verse, Ham veti, Sukho veti, Vyaso veti, na veti va. Lord Shiva says, I know the Bhagavatam, and Sukadeva knows the meaning of the Bhagavatam. But Vyasadeva, the empowered author of the Bhagavatam, he may not know what it means. He may or may not know. Again, the current passing through him may not have been known to him. You see, Ramananda Roy says the same thing. He says, there is a current passing through me. I don't know what I speak. I don't even know if it's right or wrong. But you're the listener. You will tell me if it's right or wrong. So he is empowered. This has come down to him in this way. Anyway, that verse is there by Lord Shiva. And so anyway, they attended also. See, what is this Bhagavatam? Then Sukadeva spoke elaborately. Then later, Ramaharsan Sutta, he was in charge of this, what had been recorded there. And he was representing Bhagavatam, and he was killed by Lord Balaram for being puffed up. He was proud and arrogant. Therefore, he was disqualified. And then Lord Balaram thought, what? The Sudra sitting on the Vyasasan. He poked him with a straw and killed him. Remove this rascal. Oh, what have you done? We had a big benediction. He was going to live for 10,000 years, 1,000 years. And so then he empowered his son, Sutta. It was Ramaharsan, and his son was called Sutta. Not Sukha, Sutta. So Sutta was his son. So the father lives in the son, will make good the benediction, and the son will live. Sutta was there, and he had also heard the Bhagavatam spoken to Parikshit. So then he became the speaker of the Bhagavatam. After that was finished, Vyasadeva wrote all that we have today in his ashram in Himalayas, near Badrinath, in a cave. Vyasadeva, who is said to still live there, he wrote the Bhagavatam as we know it today, which includes Vyasa Uvacha, Sukha Uvacha, Sutta Uvacha. He did not write it as a futuristic thing. You see, he taught it, and then it was spoken twice, and then he compiled it. So, some people struggle with this type of an arrangement. They feel more comfortable with the rational explanation, how everything just has to fit. Something like the scientists. They have no capacity to walk on air. But we must have the capacity to walk on air, thin air. That capacity is faith. Our faith will reveal the stones in front of us, which are as solid as anything we can imagine substance to be. To those who have no faith, it's like, what are you doing? You're just stepping out into air. There's nothing there. They will not even logically accept our arguments. You see, even the arguments. What can you do? Prabhupada just said, meatheads. Meatheads. How they can understand? They can't understand they're not the body. How can they understand higher things? Meatheads filled up their brains with meat. Dead substances produce dead brain cells. Maybe they can launch rockets and go to the moon, but they can't understand a fundamental principle. You're not this body. They struggle with it. So many of these things like a gap, we can give some explanation to that, but people say it's just a fancy answer. And they will reject it. So the good news is that Gaudiya Sampradaya is rejected by everybody except the people that are in it. That's the bottom line. Socially speaking, Ramanuja, Madhva, others, they give some protocol to recognition. They recognize that Prabhupada spread it all over, Krishna Bhakti. And their in-house thinking is, however, we are renegades of the Madhva Sampradaya. We do not actually understand the purport of the Vedas. We are not Vedantic, you see. And our supreme worshipable deity cannot be mentioned to them. If you do that, you make an offense. If you are drawn into a debate with a follower of Madhvacharya, then you respectfully debate lower things. You will become very uncomfortable if you try to debate the issue of Srimati Radharani and Krishna's Madhurya, what to speak of Parakiya Ras. You will just be insulted there. You will draw insult, you see. And then maybe also you are then responsible for that. There are many things they will not accept. Now, when you hear about Parakiya Ras, which is another intrinsic characteristic of our Parampara, it is what makes us different from other Gaudiya Paramparas from Bengal. There are Paramparas, they don't accept Parakiya Ras. They say that Jiva Goswami never taught it. That Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur disagreed with Jiva Goswami on Swakiya and Parakiya. In the West, Parakiya Ras, the president's having affairs, God is having affairs. Affairs, we don't have a hard time adjusting affairs in our head. But in the old moral society of India, God the Supreme Pure must certainly be the Supreme Moral Pure. And the fact that there is Parakiya Ras in his Leela is unacceptable by many people. In the general Hindu calling, if you preach in India, every once in a while somebody goes, why Krishna dancing with many wives? They can't accept this. They can't accept this. This is impure. Why he's doing like this? This is very bad. Ramachandra, one wife. Ramachandra. Ramachandra, the ideal king, the Dharma Raj. He shows us the duty. What is Krishna doing? They cannot swallow. Yeah, he's the enjoyer. What to speak of a few hundred millions? And your wife also belongs to Krishna. Oh, no. Huh?
There's a thing, Prabhupada said that.
Yeah.
In the book.
Yeah.
Some big Indian child.
Yes, yes, that's right, yeah.
Your wife belongs to him, all women belong to him.
Yes, Krishna is the enjoyer of everything. Everything belongs to Krishna. So, there are many little points like that Parakiya Ras. People struggle with that. The connection of the mantras and the Diksha, and many points. We stand alone, actually, alone. But with some workable friendship. Like nowadays in South India, we have a very harmonious, workable relationship with many Sri Vaishnavas. Sannyasis, Acharyas, many priests, Brahmins. They even come and take part for Gaur Purnima festival and help with the offerings and carry the big pots of rice to the altar and everything. But in the end, they stand a little distant. It's like, they just can't figure it out. Because there is no direct mention of Mahāprabhu in the Shastras. It is all covert activities. It is all substratum. It is all hidden. And Mahāprabhu is the Krishna and Narayan are Tri-yuga. But there are 4 yugas. Yada yada hi dharmasha. There in every yuga Bhagavan appears. Yes, then we say, then who he is in Kali Yuga. They say Kalki. But it goes on and on. No, but there's indication that there will be a Sankirtan movement. There will be Nama. Yuga Dharma is Nama. Yes, Kalki doesn't come and give Nama. He gives the blade. He doesn't give Nam, Sankirtan. He gives the axe, the sword. So pretty much they get caught in a space. Who is the Yuga avatar? And because it's not clear to them, although they're vastly learned, the reason it's not clear to them, they're not in that parampara. You must be connected before it is clear to you. The general conception, Krishna is God, you're not the body, that's shared even by, not the body is shared by Buddhists. They know you're not the body. Mayavadis know they're not the body. That's nowhere and nothing. You're not the body. That's nothing. That's not even preliminary God consciousness. You're not the body. There are atheists that know they're not the body. They don't believe in God, but they know they're not the body. They know that they say, I'm not this body doesn't exist in the future. I don't exist in the future. Many philosophies are there. Where not the body is a part of that. Particularly Mayavadi in Buddhism, they have that. Krishna is God. Then we say, that's debatable. Depends on which village you're in when you say that. You go to Vrindavan and announce Krishna is God, they'll just kind of laugh at you. I mean, the eternal Vrindavan. There's a story, Brihat Bhagavatam Amrita. One thing. Okay. Go ahead, please.
Oh, Maharaj.
Yeah.
What you're saying is absolutely fascinating. I was just going to suggest that maybe we break for a little while soon.
Yeah.
I don't know how the others feel about it.
All right, well, let me get out this one part of the story, and then we can.
Then we can
Yeah. What was I going to say? Brihat Bhagavatam Amrita says... Brihat Bhagavatam Amrita was a book when Maharaj Parikshit had heard Bhagavatam from Sukadev. Then Uttara, his mother, came and said that, now you have heard this from your glorious master Sukadev, and some time remains in your life. Can you give me, your humble and simple mother, in a concise way, can you give me the essence of this teaching, what you've heard from Sukadev? So then Maharaj Parikshit spoke to his mother Uttara, and Janmanjaya was there, which was, Jaimini Rishi. Jaimini Rishi was present there. And he listened to the conversation between the son and the mother. And what conversation was given there, Mahaprabhu taught it to Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami wrote it in a book. It's called Brihat Bhagavatam Amrit, the great nectar of the Bhagavatam. But not one story of the Bhagavatam is contained there. I mentioned this yesterday, right? Narada Muni starts. Then I mentioned that. Yeah. So in the later, it's divided in 2 chapters. In chapter 2, later in chapter 2, there is a devotee. His name is Gopakumar. He, after going everywhere in this universe, even to the post of Lord Brahma, Lord Indra, he's been everywhere. He's taken the position of King Indradumna, the king of Puri. He's worshipped Jagannath for 1,000 years. He is transported everywhere in the universe, through every stratum of consciousness, higher consciousness, up and up and up. And finally, he enters the eternal Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan. And there's a beautiful description how he enters there. There is a painting of that, which was done in India. And he enters Vrindavan, and he sees the beauty of the Vrindavan forest in the distance, in the village. And he starts to walk in the village, and he sees some elderly residents of the village. So he feels in his heart he's entered the eternal Goloka. So he approaches a resident of Vrindavan, and he approaches, and he asks very eagerly, "Where is Krishna's house? Where is my Bhagavan, my Prabhu? Where is Govinda? Where is Krishna?" And this person just turns around and just basically tells him to get lost. Just get out of my face, you. Are you some madman? Go away from me. Scorns him. This man scorns him heavily, And he makes note. And he goes to another person. He approaches in the same way, and they abuse him. "Go, you're mad, don't talk to me. Go out, leave me. So he makes note. These are the most miserable people I've ever met in my life. He's in the eternal Vrindavan. He's just entered about 4:45 in the afternoon, and Krishna's been gone all day. People are hanging on the thread of death personified. They have not seen Krishna all day. And this moron shows up and asks, "Where's Krishna's house? Where did he come from? What is he? Go from me." They're just like, go. And he's just completely mortified by the experience. Horrific looks on people's faces. They look like walking death. Then he sees one lady. She looks a little bit more accommodating. And he very humbly goes and approaches her in a very faltering way. "I'm searching for Krishna. I think I've come to the right place, but I'm beginning to doubt, what is happening here." Anyway, it's beautifully described there. And she understands something. She has a little compassion. And she goes, "There." And she just motions. And he turns his head, and there's Nanda Baba's house. And it dwarfs anything Vaikuntha ever dreamed of. It is far beyond Vaikuntha in beauty, wonder, opulence. It is the opulence of opulence. So then he's almost to the verge of fainting. Then that lady and everybody they run to the side of the village. As if life, the soul, has come back to dead bodies. Suddenly people's faces just start to perk up just like a rising sun. And everybody's on the edge of the village. And I think there's some description of cows come around. And everybody's looking in anticipation towards the forest. And he sees a dust cloud. This is there in very nice description. He sees a dust cloud, and he's drawn and he's looking. And in that cloud, he sees Krishna dancing with his flute, and it's the dust of the cows, and they're all coming home at the end of the day. And seeing that, he just starts running and running and running. And Krishna is playing and dancing, and then he sees Gopakumar coming, running. And Krishna starts running towards him, and they meet in an embrace. And when they embrace, both fall unconscious. And everybody comes around. The cowherd boys are there, and everybody goes, "Who's he? Where'd he come from? What happened to Krishna?" Mother Yasoda, everybody grabs Krishna. Who's this guy laying here? Everybody's completely bewildered, except Lord Balaram. Yogamaya is his potency for most of Krishna's pastimes with the cows and cowherd boys and with Vatsala. Yeah, there's the painting of that. The embrace of...
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, that's Gopakumar coming home at the end of the day. And so then how I forget is mentioned, both Krishna and Gopakumar are revived, and Yogamaya takes charge then, and people slowly adjust to accommodate this newcomer into Krishna Lila. At that time, he's still dressed in the rags of this world. He'd been wandering as a sadhu and through the universe and so many things, and he's still dressed a little on the shabby side. And then everybody's picked up into the Lila, and it moves towards Mother Yasoda's house. He doesn't know where to go, so Krishna says, "You come with me." So he just takes him into his Lila, and there is a description there of Krishna's evening meal. First, he's cleaned up a little bit. Mother Yasoda sees some peculiar little marks on his face. Gets a little bewildered. What are these marks? She removes them. Those are marks put on Krishna during the day, during secret rendezvous. What is this? She moves that. She forgets about that. It comes to the point of taking Krishna's meal, and he's invited to sit with Krishna and have prasadam. And at a point, Krishna eats a sweet ball, and he goes, "Blech," and he spits it out, and he goes, "This is the most horrible thing I've ever tasted." And then he takes it and he puts it in Gopakumar's mouth, and he puts a sweet ball in there. And Gopakumar has never, ever experienced sweet like this. It's actually a sweet that Radharani has made. But Krishna is playing jokes. "Oh, very nasty sweet is made for me." Giving it to him, he's this is the prasad of all prasadams. Right? Then at the end of the meal, they take Krishna is fed, everyone takes some remnants. Then everybody starts to move towards their house, but before going, Krishna just looks at him and goes, "You just don't look the part." He takes his turban and he puts it on his head. And he takes a couple of his ornaments and he just places them on him. And in the process, he's completely transformed into an eternal cowherd boy. Then everybody gets up to move off. And then he doesn't quite know where to go. Everything is coming to him very naturally. It's home. But he doesn't quite know where to go. And then Krishna says, "Go with Subal." I think he sends him with Subal. Subal or Sridham, I forget. He sends him with one of the senior cowherd boys, and he goes off. Then he tells, we go there, and then we cowherd boys, we don't sleep a wink all night. Nobody sleeps. We just all lay there and wait for the sun to rise. And there's some talk amongst some of the boys that Krishna is up to something, but most of us don't know exactly what it is. But there's some talk that Krishna is in the forest tonight. But because they're not Madhurya Ras, they don't know what it is. And they're waiting in a great anticipation. They do not sleep. And then the sun starts to rise and they jump and head for the cowshed. And Gopakumar gives this description. And it actually in the book it happens twice. It happens to himself, and then he is sent by Radharani back to the world of Vrindavan Dham. Radharani calls him one day and says, "There is a Brahmin just reached perfection. Only he needs to acquire spontaneity." That last touch of spontaneity in love. He needs that. Go there and tell him the story of your own experience. So the book tells how this Brahmin has reached like the state of samadhi in his consciousness, and he's wandering in Vrindavan. He enters a deep, dark forest. He can't hear anything and he can't see. What is the prayojana? What's something about that world? No detail, not drawn into detail, not too much inquisitiveness, just to know it is magnificent beyond magnificence. That book, Brihat Bhagavatam Amrita, does not disclose anything about Madhurya Ras, but its content is sufficient to take any sincere aspirant to that plane, to that world. So that is our parampara, Bhagavatam and Brihat Bhagavatam Amrita. Srila Prabhupada writes, if one wants to know, he either uses the essence, a word like the essence or the mystery or the meaning. He uses like a synonym of that type. If one wants to know the essence of devotion, one must read Brihat Bhagavatam Amrita. But yet His Divine Grace is not present in this world for 24, going 25 years. That's pushing a quarter of a century. And mostly, I also have not read that book, actually. I only heard that book. Because even the sweetest thing picked up with a little sand in it, that can be a dangerous thing. We are like chakora birds. Wait for the pure drop. Don't just run and gobble up all kinds of sweet things. All that is sweet is not nectar. Like all that glitters is not gold. All that is sweet, it is not nectar. If you judge just by how sweet it is, wow. The sahajiyas are sweet, sweet, and sweeter still. We have jnana and vairagya in our sweet ball. There is austerity, there is renunciation, there is a life of sacrifice, self-sacrifice, to the extreme. We're not enjoyers of the sweetness of Krishna's Leela. We're not the enemies of that either. As Prabhupada once said, we are not gopi haters. You see. We are not against the clan of the gopis, actually. We aspire to be part of that clan, but there's a way to reach there, and it is through humble servitude, service, dasiras, and that is service practical. People want to meditate on Manjari Bhav, but they don't want to dress the deities every morning in the temple. Then their Manjari Bhav is a bogus meditation. And you can dress the deities, you can bathe Krishna, you can paint his lip and his eye in your local temple. But no, I want to do it all in my mind with my japa beads. That is bogus. That is a bogus thing. First you do here, maintain very nicely here. You worship Krishna there. Actually, it is almost Astakaliya Leela. The pastimes of Krishna in 8 divisions begin at 3:30 in the morning. That's just about when a good pujari is going in the pujari room. 3:30, 3:45, something around that time. Radha and Krishna wake up in the morning in a place called Nidhiband, if you've been in Vrindavan. It begins there. That is the beginning of their day. They wake up there. In the temple, they are woken up there. And who is inside there? Oh, and then like Radha Govinda in New York, any big temple of Prabhupada, they are dressed in their beautiful night dress, night gown. Very nicely they are dressed for their evening pastime. In the morning they're woken up there, and there some preparation is made for Mangalarti. In the eternal world, they are woken up by their devotees, some preparation is made. They are first given some nice sweet taste in their mouth. We are offering rasgula, sendesh to the deities, nice sweet rice there in that world. So in the process of deity worship, which many people say, oh, Kanishta, 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 that is the beginning of entering into the eternal pastimes of the Supreme Lord. And it moves through the day. And then it moves into the period of Sankirtan. It moves into the Sankirtan. We go out on the Sankirtan. Prabhupada told, Sankirtan is Rasa Leela. And it is true. There is no difference. Sankirtan and the Rasa Leela of Krishna are the parallel pastime. Parallel Leela. Gaur Leela and Krishna Leela. And this extension that we live in, this is the eternal Leela of Mahaprabhu, Sankirtan Leela. It is every bit as eternal as it was in Navadvip 500 years ago. Only we have to join it, join into it, the Sankirtan Leela. So, Hare Krishna. Hope I didn't get too far off the track. So,
I, for one, would like to hear more. But I thought before we split up, I'd like to ask Krishna Deity to introduce some of the other devotees that came with you. We've introduced ourselves to you, and I think the devotees would like to know all the other devotees that came in your party. So, would you do that, Krishna Deity?
Because sometimes, mom and dad can only take them so far. And, Guruji has to step in. And mom and dad don't cooperate with that sometimes. So.
First, second, and sannyas initiation from Śrīla Narasiṅgha Mahārāja.
This is Ramdas.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Who is Krishna's fiancé. She's starting to pronounce that. And this is Govardhan and Priya from San Diego.
Wait, I want to back up one. Ram Das is a first and second initiated disciple of Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, who is known to many years in the Western world as the older or senior Puri Maharaj who lived up to 103 and left this world about a year and a half ago. And Ram Das Prabhu is an affectionate servitor of his Guru Maharaj, and he is founded what's called Mandala Publishers. He publishes these books that are about here, some of these books that are about here that you can have a look at when this is over. Can I say just one more? That there is sometimes an air of ice because we were grown in an environment where we have Prabhupada's books and everything is in Prabhupada's books, and we are grown in that environment. So what you have to do is you have to squeeze on me from every angle and see if you taste anything bitter to your Prabhupada experience. What is Prabhupada? And if you don't find anything objectionable, then you have to wholeheartedly accept my request and advice, is that you must read these books, especially if you want to be an effect in the current situation of the world, where many things are encroaching into Prabhupada in the name of higher devotion, rasa, raganuga, many, many things. And this will give you a wealth of substance to deal with that in addition to what you already have. Before I was a devotee, I worked in fiberglass. I was a fiberglass technician, so to speak. We have what's called catalyst. I will place my head on the chopping block and make you a wager. If you don't find it true, you can chop off my head. And that wager is that if you read these books, they are by Śrīla Maharaj, Prabhupada's affectionate godbrother, and Śrīla Puri Goswami Maharaj, Prabhupada's affectionate godbrother. If you read these books and some of the things that are written by their followers of Prabhupada who have written in that line, this will add as a catalyst to your already existing experience of Krishna consciousness. And you will look again over the books of Srila Prabhupada and you will find things there that you didn't see before. You will find things there that you did not see. A certain layer of depth, a certain layer of profound interest that you probably just didn't see the 100th time around. But with a little help from our friends, from our uncles. The average devotee was a 2-year devotee when Srila Prabhupada left. There were some of you who were around for the whole 12 years of it. The average was 2 years or less. When you added the devotees up and did an average, it was 2 years or less. And now many, many years have passed. And in many cases, if we go to the home and open Prabhupada's books on the shelf, it hasn't been opened in a decade. There's a lot of things in Prabhupada's books. And, well, these books are a very concentrated contribution, like a magnifying glass over that. Prabhupada was very kind to spend much time with basics of Krishna consciousness, to explain Varnashram even, many things, how to found a society, cow protection. These books don't touch any of those foundational things. These books touch the subject that we've been talking about for the last hour, our parampara in relation to Ragamarg, Raganuga Bhakti. And so, if you have no objection in what you find in me, then that should be some sort of a clearing signal. At least, as next week when I'm meeting with certain GBC men in Vermont, a challenge is being put. All the books of Srila Maharaj and Srila Puri Maharaj must be read by everybody in the GBC. I will provide the highlighters, and they must highlight what is detrimental to Krishna consciousness or Prabhupada's movement. I expect to get all my highlighters back unused. No one will be able to make a mark. So, anyway, that's just my feeling. Maybe they'll just mark them up. I don't know, but we'll see. So, please have a look. And as I said earlier also, we wanted to get copies of this if anyone wants to have it. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Prakrita Rasa Dushini. And there's also a little booklet over here called 8 Essential Essays, which deals with this topic in a very current affairs manner. Problem is I get carried away sometimes and might disturb your schedule about other things. But if you don't feed me, if you don't feed me, I'm leaving for sure. If you don't sit me down and talk, well, I'm either going swimming or hiking. And you got a lot of beautiful mountains here. We could get lost for days up there. Who knows? So it's up to you. If you want to have programs again today, all day into the night, it's fine with me. We go till we drop and pick it up again the next morning. Yeah.
I'd also like to suggest if you allow a little bit more time, then Maharaj can talk like in more depth, like certain points that Maharaj discussed today about how certain deities got their names and the history of that. I think it's important to
Well, questions will help because
understand those in depth.
there's a lot of things. I mean, there's just so many things. I'm just trying to remember some of the things that are being thrown at us these days, which are said to be the defects of the devotees or the defects of Prabhupada's movement. And so many, I can't even remember them. They're coming like hail in a storm these days. But I do have a intention to not let even one of those things go past without speaking on it extensively and also writing on it and documenting it, whatever. So any of these things you've heard, if you can tell me, I will be very happy about that because it's intolerable. Recently it was said that Prabhupada is omniscient. He knows everything. He even knows children are being abused or any such thing. Such a person doesn't deserve to have a tongue even who would say that. I can't regard such a person as a Vaishnava of any kind who actually says that. Such a person has no understanding of even common human decency. A common man, an ordinary person, a meat eater would have more compassion than that. It is unacceptable and it is philosophically naive to make such a statement. So, and there are more statements. Some of them are horrific, some of them are good for a laugh, but our mood is we don't leave a leaf of this unturned. So, if you can help me in that,
I was thinking, Raj,
that's
that
fine.
if people have questions in particular that they'd like to ask, maybe they
Yes.
can write them down.
Yes.
that helps.
And then,
You know.
you can have like in your hand things that maybe people might not remember when they're sitting in the room.
That's right,
And
that happens
you can
all the
give a
time.
talk and then you can say, and you can cover the points that people brought up to you. That helps.
What you can do is you can just stick them on the board too. Think of one.
Maybe there could actually be classes based on asking questions on the subject matter.
Well, I was just trying to open the
This is
box
the
a little
overview,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah, just kind of open the box, touch a lot of things, what interests you, what you think is more of value, then
That's right.
we'll try to have some.
So maybe that could be sorted out, that we could actually have, for example, I'd like a word for word of what's on the bulletin board. I mean, there's just so many things that you brought up today, and then there's the issue of these lists of questions that you've brought up that certainly devotees have discussed for months here. And then there's the history of the Parampara that I'm very fascinated with.
Okay, well, I have to have some questions to know what part of the history
Exactly.
and how it goes and things. So
Well,
the
even
questions are vital.
Right.
They're vital. They're vital to help guide the speaker in any direction. It's a shame that we weren't more mature about Krishna consciousness when we had the opportunity of Srila Prabhupada in our presence. Usually when His Divine Grace asked for questions, what he got was just, muddle out of someone's brain. So generally there is, every class, everything ends with going back to home, back to Godhead. Thank you very much. Because any questions, and questions would come out of, just madness, Now we wish if we were there now, maybe we could ask a more mature question based on a life of service and having read his books front to cover hundreds of times, so to speak, and so good questions are the source of good information. It begins with the question. So, questions are good.
Maharaj, hoping and planning to take you around to visit the community, the different devotees and homes in the community over the next week.
Yes.
So, we'd like you to see Sharanagati on
Yeah.
that level.
Yeah.
But this evening, if there's no other suggestion, we're certainly happy to have an open house and have devotees come to our home and visit you or talk individually or even this afternoon as far as it's up to
You all decide. I'm
So
I'm
anyone's welcome to come to our place at any time and visit the devotees.
What time is this evening, though, this fixed time, is there going to be, could you
Well, last
suggest
night
5 or
Maharaj
6?
was still going strong at midnight.
Right.
Don't show up. Don't show up after 12:30.
Another.
6 o'clock? 6 is good
6
for
is
me.
good.
Should people have eaten first or? Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So they will come.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, make sure.
Hare Krishna. Jai
Thank you,
Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.